And we're going to begin. May I have a roll call, please?
Clark,
Present.
Dutra,
Here.
Montesino, Orozco,
Present.
Parker,
Here.
Salcido,
Here.
Quiroz Carter.
Here.
We have quorum.
All right, we do not have any absent council members, so we will move on to item 5, the Pledge of Allegiance. And let's see, Councilmember Parker, would you like to lead us? All right.
Please stand.
All righty, so we are moving on to item 6, information items, reports of disbursement, item 6A, item 6B, miscellaneous documents report, and item 6C. And I believe 6A and 6B can be found in the packet. So we will, correct? So we'll move on to item 6C. Is that also in the packet, or do we have a presentation? Okay, so that is also in the packet. So we will go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. All items appearing on the consent agenda are recommended actions that are considered to be routine and will be acted upon as one motion. Any items removed will be considered immediately after the motion. The mayor, that's me, will allow public input prior to the approval of the consent agenda. All right. Before I do that, before I do public comment, I do have a statement. California Government Code, Section 54953C3, requires the city to report an oral summary prior to taking action on executive compensation. This is that summary. Item 7G includes approval of an at-will employment agreement for Tamara Vidas as interim city manager. The recommended salary is $247,200 with a maximum annual contribution to deferred compensation of $5,000. The contract provides for other economic benefits, including longevity pay, vacation, sick leave, administrative leave, health benefits, and bilingual pay as described in the compensation and benefits plan for the executive team. All right, do we have anyone from the public who would like to comment on the consent agenda? Please come forward. Welcome.
I was a prior city councilman. Anyways, I want to just speak briefly on 7G, our intern city manager appointment. I know she's been there before. She's done the job, and I think while I was here, and she did a good job in representing the city of Watsonville. Also, she was obviously helped tremendously during the COVID time frame. She was really an important key player in working and collaborating with the county and the nonprofit agencies. And you can imagine that was a handful and still trying to have to manage us, right? So I feel for the city managers, and I still feel for the assistant city managers, because sometimes they get their hands full. But I think she's highly qualified. Some may say, oh, the package is too big, and some may say the package is not enough, right? But it's really important. She's shown herself, and I think and I hope that she applies for the city manager position. And I really hope that you guys consider her as our next city manager. We've always looked for that homegrown individual that will represent our city and help guide the council through moments of need. And so I think she would be a great candidate. I mean, I know that all of the council members may not agree with me, but again, that's why we're there, right? To have a consensus, hopefully, on who we're going to select. So choose wisely, and I think you've done a good step here, and I hope to see her sitting there as a city manager in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak on the consent agenda?
I'm Takashi,
Welcome.
and I worked with previous speaker when he was on the city council, and I had a good time with him, and I'm really glad tonight could meet him after 4 years or so, and I agree with him. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else from the public who would like to speak on the consent agenda? All right, seeing no one from the public, I'll bring it back to council. Council, would you like to pull any item from the agenda? Any comments?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call, please?
Can I say one thing real quick? Just on 7B, I just had I don't know who's in charge of the printing of that. Where's Courtney? She's not here today?
No, she's on vacay.
Oh, she's on vacation?
Yeah, but what's your question?
Whoever does the new printing, some of the seniors need bigger print on the total line.
All right, we'll pass that along. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Clark,
Aye.
Dutra,
Aye.
Montesino,
Yes.
Orozco,
Aye.
Parker,
Yes.
Salcido,
Aye.
and Quiroz Carter.
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. We have no items removed from consent agenda, so we'll move on to 9, presentation and oral communications. We'll start with 9A, oral communications from the public. This time is set aside for members of the general public to address the council on any item not on the council agenda, which is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. No action or discussion shall be taken on any item presented except that any council member may respond to statements made or questions asked, or may ask questions for clarification. All matters of an administrative nature will be referred to staff. All matters relating to council will be noted in the minutes and may be scheduled for discussion at a future meeting or referred to staff for clarification and report. All speakers are asked to fill out a speaker card and leave it at the podium. Speakers are asked to announce their name and district in which they live in order to obtain an accurate record for the minutes. Welcome.
That was a lot. Anyways, good afternoon again. My name is Aurelio Gonzalez, and I live in District 2. I'm here today to thank Eduardo for standing up at the RTC meeting. Also, I was a past RTC chair. The actions that the county supervisors took, I think, was wrong in delaying the process. Obviously, everybody wants rail. Well, I shouldn't say everybody wants rail, but the majority of people agree with the rail. Not everybody agrees with the trail. And also, there's a group of organizations that just want the trail, which isn't sustainable. They've already shown it in numbers. There's not going to be no money just to sustain just a trail. And again, just a trail that goes between here and Watsonville with no rail. Watsonville will benefit from a rail service more than a trail service. But I do imply that we do move and push. As a council, I think it's really important that you guys right now at this moment show to the community that what support we have for this, for the rail and the trail, the ultimate concept, because this started from 2013 from the Monterey Bay Scenic Route idea. So I think it's important that you guys send a letter to the county supervisors stating where you guys stand as a council and representing the city of Watsonville, and then tell them not to hold back on approving and accepting the $68 million that would go to fund the project. The storyline goes is the money's going to run out. But you know, one of the things that they worked on this, they worked on equity, and they worked on helping the disadvantaged community. Well, we're that disadvantaged community. A lot of these grants, the storyline went, helped get that funding because the disadvantaged community. So they kind of used us, right, to be able to fund projects in North County. And a lot of old folks will know that this is a tradition for North County politics. And I'm sorry I went over, but I think it's important that you guys send a letter to the county and also to RTC and let them know where we stand.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah. Oh, I'm Takashi on District 7. Yeah, I came across a very moving essay by a young Palestinian writer, and she lives in Gaza. And I'd like to read some excerpts of her essay. The title is Gaza War Diary. I'm shattered. The horrors we've experienced over the last 6 months are unprecedented level. since Israel leaders declared us as human animals and waged war against all life in Gaza, I have been struggling to keep my humanity, even my sanity. Writing this diary is part of that effort. And then she writes, I like to bear witness to our pain, honor our memories, and strive for a world where such atrocities are no longer tolerated or ignored. And in the end, she writes, I continue to remind myself that it is not over yet. I don't know if I'll live long enough to read these words again and reflect on them, but I continue to write what I am feeling. I still have faith. I still have hope. Yeah, I'll come to speak to you every city council meeting, just until we can get 4 of you to support our ceasefire resolution. Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Barry Scott. I live in Aptos, and I'm here to echo former RTC Chair Gonzalez's comments and to thank Commissioner Montesino for his yes vote and an amendment to an RTC motion and package resolution from last week. The curious thing is that the two supervisors who have voted no on approving the greatest ever, the largest ever grant for a rail trail project are using the Watsonville equity argument to propose removal of the rail line, which is what Watsonville needs the most. And it's really shocking to me. And I would urge, if there was time, I'd pray for a resolution from the City Council, but I don't think that can be done in time for the April 30th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. But potentially, a strong statement from the mayor or the council or individually to Supervisors Koenig and McPherson's offices, asking them to approve the staff recommendations that are coming from the county and the RTC, and 8 voting members out of 10 last week supporting the ultimate trail to keep the tracks, build the trail, and take advantage of those $67 million of funds, I think would be very helpful. And I urge you all to do something like that. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else from the public who'd like to speak? Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Murray Fonts. I'm Assistant Public Works Director and City Engineer. I'd like to call to your attention, as well as that of the public, that on this coming Wednesday, not tomorrow, but Wednesday, May 1st, the city will be hosting the first Traffic Advisory Committee meeting from 6 to 7:30 in the adjacent Watsonville Community Room. The city is rolling out an updated neighborhood traffic management plan. The plan can be viewed on the city website. The plan includes the creation of this committee, which will include representatives of each council district, either yourselves or an appointee, as well as city staff. It will meet 3 times a year, and as noted in the plan, the committee will review and discuss all traffic calming projects requested by the community in a public forum for residents to participate. The committee will receive updates on community requests, actions taken by staff, and serve as an advisory committee on implementations of projects that have been submitted through the plan. Staff has been using the plan recently and implemented several minor traffic calming projects. These include installation of speed limit signs, red curbs, crosswalks, and some stop signs within the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, do we have anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Seeing no one else from the public, we'll bring it back to council. Who would like to start? I'll start. I've been pretty busy, lots of meetings, RTC meeting, lots of meetings. I won't bore you with those details. I went to Jalisco's for the Pajaro Valley PVEF, maybe Mayor Pro Tem Orozco knows that acronym. I attended with her. It was a lovely event. I also attended, there were so many events this weekend, I couldn't get to everything, but I was really happy to see that the community was out and having fun, safe time. But I did attend the Polynesian Festival, I believe it was, at the Youth Center. That was a lot of fun. My niece and nephew really wanted to go. It was super, super fun, so thank you so much to Parks and Community Services. That was very fun. There was a shave ice machine, there was dancers, there was all kinds of cool stuff, so very, very fun. My family had a really good time. And I have some meetings coming up, but I won't bore you with those details. There's also the Fashion Cares fashion show at Queen's Shoes on Sunday the 28th. I will be there. I love fashion, so I'll be there for that. And I've been talking to a lot of young constituents lately. A lot of high school students are approaching me. They're doing a lot of reports and things like that on government. So if you are a high school student and you're doing reports on government, feel free to reach out. I would love to talk to you about local government. It's really, really great to see so many young folks in our community get involved. And with that, I will turn it over to whoever the next speaker is.
I guess I'll go next.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Last week, I also attended the Pajaro Valley Education Foundation. Thank you. Spring Fling event. It's the foundation that supports the district, our local PVUSD school districts. It was nice to reconnect with the PVUSD community, but also be there to acknowledge a couple of the folks who were recognized. I also got the opportunity to present some proclamations to the two exceptional partners of the Second Harvest Food Bank, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who was named the 2023 Donor of the Year, and also Amazon Local Good for their engagement in food delivery to homebound residents. And I'm sure I attended a couple of other meetings, but that's it for today.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Clark? All right. Councilmember Dutra? I'm good, thank you. Okay. Councilmember Montesino?
Yeah. Good afternoon. Yeah, I just want to, speak, I've been to a lot of events and a lot of meetings representing the city. One of the, want to explain a little bit more on the Regional Transportation Commission last week, and I think, in 2020, the council did affirm their endorsement of the full, not the interim trail, but the full trail and rail concept, and we were working on that. But one of the things that the commission has done, especially because all the votes are mostly from North County, is, to me personally, left Watsonville and South County specifically out of except for on paper advocating for these kind of communities. We got nothing out of Measure D on the rail and trail. We got $3 million. They've spent, millions and millions of dollars from Davenport all the way to Capitola. Have been very successfully grabbing grants. And the only investment that we've had is a trail, which I call it personally, the trail to nowhere. Because it doesn't get you, even to the downtown. It doesn't get you even, outside of town. It's just there. So I've been advocating, long and hard, and in the last meeting I advocated, because we only have 97 million left over of the Measure D because of the life of the sales tax.
So the next upcoming meetings, I said I want, 45 million for South County. Can I take a privilege and finish?
Yes, thank you.
And 45 million for South County, 45 million for maintenance that they already need through the trails that they already had, because you can't not get grants for maintenance. So we have to take care of the trails that are already there. And 7 million for any overruns that the North County trails need. However they do their overruns, don't really care. For me, it was about advocating for us, for South County, and getting that designation, because that 45 million potential could get us our trails to our community. Because, like I said, we've been disproportionately not been taken care of. So that's, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Parker?
Other than having probably 5 or 6 meetings with different community members as well as constituents, I'm going to jump in on this really quickly as well, because I was on the RTC as well. And one of the things that really bothered me, and we're talking years ago, was the fact that if they wanted to start a rail trail, then they should have started in South County, because South County is going to hook up with Monterey County, and that's how the rail will continue. And yet they ignored that, and they put all this money into North County. And it continues to this day. So I hear you and I hear everything, and I'm glad you guys are advocating for South County on the RTC and anywhere else that we can have that influence, because so much money has been gotten for these rail trails based on the demographics of our community in South County, and it's not been spent here. We had a railroad bridge. We were talking about adding that so you could put bikes, people could bike across from Pajaro and they deemed it too expensive. And so here's the thought. I don't care, because at this point we haven't gotten any of that money that they keep spending on whatever it may be. And we are without very simple things that we would just like to be able to communicate with Pajaro back and forth and ride a bike and be safe on that. So I'm with you, and I thank you for your representation on that. And I thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Salcido?
I just wanted to recognize Community Action Board's event last week. On Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, they held their second annual prom dress and suit collection giveaway, which was a huge rite of passage. It's the second annual, and like Community Action Board does, it was bigger, it was better. There was way more suiting, there were way more sizes and inclusivity. Also, they had members from the cosmetology field who were studying cosmetology to come in and do hair and makeup. It was an incredible event, and hundreds of dresses were given away. They had Mixteco interpreters, and it really was a complete collaborative community event. Lots of different organizations were involved, and I look forward to figuring out how the city can participate a little bit more next year and help support this amazing program and rite of passage. And I just wanted to specifically acknowledge Maria Rodriguez Castillo from Community Action Board. As always, she does amazing work, but on this particular event, she just was amazing. So.
All right. Thank you very much. We will move on to item 9C, our report out of closed session.
Good evening. A closed session was had on the items on the agenda, and as to the conference with labor negotiator, no reportable action was taken, and I'll look to the mayor to confirm that on the personnel matter 3A, no reportable action was taken.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 10, reports to council. We'll begin with item 10A, city manager's update report.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, council members, very briefly, just a reminder that our summer in the city application period closes next week. So really encouraging seniors and juniors to apply from high school. So that would be great. You will notice we have Public Works is out there with Chris Contractor. They're striping and freshening up sidewalks and stuff, so you might notice some increased activity throughout the city. And then finally, I think on Friday, many of you are attending an event in Salinas where our congressperson, Zoe, is going to be providing us $1 million for our wastewater treatment plant. So looking forward to that as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and now we will move on to item 10B, presentation on the 34-unit housing navigation tiny village project at the Westview Presbyterian Church.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Council, one of the things I asked Monterey County, Roxana, and staff to sort of come and give an update on where they are with the project. So today is meant to just provide an update. There was a presentation provided in your packet. Thank you.
Good evening, honorable members of the council, mayor, and city manager Mendez. Thank you so much for this opportunity to provide an update. My name is Roxanne Wilson, as you all very well know. I'm the County Homeless Services Director for the County of Monterey, and joining me today.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Peterson. I'm with the County of Santa Cruz Human Services Department. Usually Robert Ratner, the Director of Housing for Health, would be here, but he's unavailable, so I'm standing in. It's nice to see some of you again. I'm scared.
So, for the public, I just want to give a general update, or a general project overview for those who have missed. The County of Monterey did pursue, in partnership with the County of Santa Cruz, a grant for us to jointly address the shared encampment that spans over unincorporated areas of Monterey County, unincorporated areas of the County of Santa Cruz, and also the city of Watsonville's jurisdiction, and also now PERFMA. That happened after. Subsequently, the County of Monterey was awarded $8 million, and in our proposal, we had pitched the idea that we would build 34 non-congregate housing units to develop a housing navigation center. So this is a little bit different than a traditional emergency shelter. It is an emergency shelter with supportive services layered on top of that, with the intention of housing people. So we're very excited about this partnership with the County of Santa Cruz and also now with the City of Watsonville. Ultimately, the goal was to provide a safe, permanent alternative place for people to stay and provide an opportunity for them to work on all of their needs, stabilize, and then move them towards a path towards stable housing. There has been quite a bit of work. I know the county has been fairly quiet for quite some time now, but I thought that it would be important for us to review all of the events that have taken place since the award was announced. Back in February 28th, the Monterey County Board of Supervisors had approved or had authorized my office to apply for encampment resolution funding, and we were awarded in June 19th of 2023. We actually didn't receive an executed agreement from the state until September 13th. So I think that that is really important for us to keep in mind on why the timeline has been set back so far. MOU negotiations with the County of Santa Cruz happened during December and February, and I'm happy to announce that that is now fully executed. So the counties have come to terms on our agreement. And today, also excited to announce that the County of Monterey's Board of Supervisors had approved our 2 non-standard agreements for us to move forward. That is a huge hill that we had overcome because they are non-standard terms. Where we are now is Dignity Moves did submit their application for a business license with the City of Watsonville. I think we are still pending the decision on that. We do have to complete the permit process, which includes the city is requiring us to submit a management operation plan, and our staff is currently working on that draft in partnership with the County of Santa Cruz and also with a service provider that we are negotiating a contract with. We do anticipate that we will break ground in June of this year, and our target open date is around December of this year. We are working really hard to try to get this done before the next rain season. Let me know if you have anything. Okay. So, The service highlights, I think, is really important to this council. So I did hear all of your concerns, and we've taken that back and really looked at our budget and to determine if your requests are feasible. So I am happy to report that we are going to have security and cameras as the council has requested from us. We will have 24-hour staffing, and again, it's 34 non-congregate units. There is a pet area that we are including inside of the design, so we're not trying to create arbitrary barriers for those pet owners who don't want to separate from their animals. And this, again, is emergency shelter plus supportive services. And I really want to emphasize and underscore that that's what makes this project so special to us. There will be congregate dining. We are in the process of drafting the Good Neighbor policy, as I had mentioned to the City Council prior. The way we operate is that we draft a policy and we run it by what we call our lived experience advisory directive. So this is community members who have lived experience, and they help inform us when we're making policies if some things are arbitrary or even if there's better ways for us to approach this. They had quite a few recommendations, in which I think that the council would be pleased of, and hopefully by time we roll out the contract with the service provider that we're in negotiations with, we'll be able to provide the final draft that everyone has agreed on to the council. And finally, I think the biggest piece is that we are trying our hardest to make sure that people do not return to the encampment. So housing navigation and rapid rehousing services is an extra layer of services. Back in 2019, I engaged with Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey County, and they analyze our homeless management information database because our HMIS system spans over San Benito County and Monterey County. And I asked a simple question: what are the two services that significantly reduce the length of time someone is experiencing homelessness? And their data center did all of the processing and responded, you cannot have an emergency shelter without rapid rehousing and housing navigation. And that is what is one of the most important factors of this, is trying to ensure that the organization has the right infrastructure so that they can move people into permanent housing. This rendering is the test fit that was approved by the Westview Presbyterian Church leadership. As you can see, let me see if I can move this around. So this is the church right here at the very bottom right of your screen. And after lots of discussions on what's the appropriate place for us to put the site, we had decided to move it from this back area over here to behind the church. There's a right-of-way that we were informed of a couple of months ago that we're not allowed to build over, so we had to consider that when we were designing the project. This will be, you'll see in a future slide that it's going to be fully fenced off with security gates, and there is a storage area, trash, and further intake opportunities here in the back parking lot. This is a three-dimensional rendering to give you a better idea of what the site looks like from an aerial view. Again, the church is on the lower right-hand corner. You'll see the tiny village behind the church, and then this is a church property it's a house that's owned by the church, excuse me. And here's the neighboring buildings. So this entire way right in front of the church, or to the left of the church, is going to now be designated for parking. And this rendering here actually shows you the fence. Here's the 3 feet that we have to lift the entire site for us to clear the FEMA requirements. But again, it's completely fenced off. We are exploring the idea of doing white stucco fencing in the front to help with the overall appeal of the site and to provide a lot of privacy, not only to the neighbors, but also to the people who are inside of the program. And I do believe that's the end of my presentation, so I am now here to answer any questions. Thank you.
If I could actually just add one other thing.
Of course.
I just wanted to share and reemphasize some of what Roxanne was saying, that just a few weeks ago on March 26th, Robert was in front of the Board of Supervisors providing a semi-annual Housing for Health update on the strategic plan, the Housing for Health Partnership strategic plan. And during that presentation, He also emphasized the importance of low barrier navigation centers. The county's planning on doing 3 throughout the county, 1 in north, 1 in south, and 1 in the center of the county. And one of the values that we see in this type of shelter is that it has the most success in leading to longer-term outcomes. So as Roxanne describes, not short-term turnaround, but we were trying to help people get onto a different path so they're no longer homeless long-term. And so I just wanted to emphasize that it's part of a bigger county push that also includes preventing, addressing, and reducing homelessness long-term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions from council? Councilmember Dutra?
All right. Have you spoken to the surrounding neighborhoods? I just saw that it rubbed up against Cherry. Have you worked with a city council member of that district to make sure that those people understand what's going in near them?
Yes, so we've done 2 community input sessions, and we are planning another one with the city right now for us to engage again and give the neighborhood updates on where we're at, and also to invite them to participate in enforcing the neighborhood, the good neighbor policy, I'm sorry.
And what happens if the good neighborhood policy is not being met?
Well, it is actually contractual for our service provider that they enforce this. This is a national movement because we've seen bad shelters, right? We know that people congregate around, litter, that they trespass. We're very familiar with how bad shelters can run. But there is a national movement for nonprofits to start having agreements with the neighborhood that we promise you that we'll do our part, and then you're going to work with us to let us know when things are not working out on what you think should be happening in your neighborhood. If the County of Monterey has to get involved to assist the nonprofit, we will. We are not abandoning this project in the city of Watsonville in any way. But if it continues to become an issue, then we will work with the city of Watsonville and the county of Santa Cruz for us to explore next steps.
I have to disagree with you on that, just because I've never seen a county give another county $2 million to put a program into a space so they don't have to deal with the issue.
$8 million.
You know,
So
right? I just want, it's been, when there was plenty of space on the Pajaro side, you know, that they could have found a space to do it there. But the city of Watsonville is now going to have to be, we're going to have to be spending money out of our general fund to deal with issues. Our public service officers are going to be even, you know, have to work harder to deal with an increase of the homeless population that's growing. And in Watsonville, it went up, what, 22% last year? We're the only city that grew. So we are facing a crisis here in Watsonville. And the city of Monterey, the county of Monterey, to me, is continuing to make an issue even bigger in our city. You know, working with the city of Santa Cruz, who clearly, I don't remember a meeting where we sent, I mean, I must have missed it, where we gave a checklist of you guys for security cameras. Was there a meeting where we requested all that?
No, that was just when we had a presentation.
We just did a presentation, but we didn't, it was like, you know, we didn't do like a formal request. I think that this is a real big issue. And it's, you know, when we were dealing with flooding and we had the homeless population come here in December, I believe, after the flooding, they told us they are not going to come from the levees and go into this shelter. They specifically told us that. They told us that is their home. They're not coming into the shelter. Are you going to force them out of there and put them in the little housing?
May I respond, Councilmember?
Yes.
So there's national studies that actually show that if you give people a safe place to stay, that there's a decrease in need for public services, so police departments, fire departments. There's national studies. Monterey County has experienced a 28% reduction in homelessness, and all of our programs. I'm not saying that they're perfect. Humans are humans, but all of our services that have been provided to this population has proven to be fairly successful. We have, our biggest shelter has over 100 individuals staying in there at any given time, and right now we're producing 85% permanent housing exits out of that shelter. So I think that if the county wasn't offering to pursue the funding, to do all of the legwork, I can see why the city would feel this way. But we're doing this in partnership, and we're hoping that we can build together to address this shared issue.
I appreciate your positivity, and but I just, I was part of the Pajaro Valley Shelter Service for years. I sat as president for several years. I sat on that board. I have seen a successful organization, and I know what it takes, because the people that come into the organization are given the tools over several months. This is a short term. What's your short term? The 90 days?
6 months, I believe, is
6
the
months.
ordinance.
I cannot see in 6 months somebody being able to save enough money to go into permanent housing in Santa Cruz or Monterey County.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just, and I appreciate you being positive. And in theory, I think so many of us really want to see something like this. But you're being ambitious, and how many is this, a 2-year project?
It is a 2-year project that is funded by the encampment resolution funding, but we are currently working with the County of Santa Cruz to identify other funding streams should the church want to continue doing the business.
I would not believe anything that the county wants to say. They've promised a home key project for 2 years. We've had this county supervisor up here saying, we're getting it funded. It has not happened. So we're going to have a total mess after 2 years.
I can speak to what we're doing a bit, as well as some of the partnership on this. When I do want to acknowledge that when there was flooding last year and people left the levee, people from both sides of the river, people who were camping on both sides of the river, went and sheltered at the fairgrounds for quite some time. And so at that time, we were partnering the Monterey County and Santa Cruz County on supporting that shelter for a while. I think, again, with this low barrier navigation center, the intent is that it's a full hands-on shelter with the wraparound supports to help people get not just necessarily save money, but build the supports that they need to move on to permanent housing, whether it is locally, or not everybody who exits to permanent housing necessarily exits within where they are. People may have family elsewhere that they choose to locate with. Everybody has different circumstances, but I just want to emphasize it's really hands-on wraparound supports for the people who are in the shelter. I also want to add that during that presentation that I referenced earlier that was given to the Board of Supervisors, we also proposed that the board explore dedicating $1 million of Measure K to navigation centers, as well as $1.5 million of core funding to support navigation centers and prevention services. The next meeting regarding core to discuss how that funding will be utilized is next Tuesday on April 30th. I just share that to demonstrate that the commitment to put forth funding that we can find to support long-term operations of the shelter, that we're dedicated to that. And we also recognize that it's going to be hard, and it's going to require continued pursuit of federal and state grants, and hopefully partnerships with all of the jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have other questions from council? Councilmember Parker.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Okay, so Ms. Wilson or Roxanne, may I?
Yes.
Okay. When we first spoke to you, was that about a year ago?
No, it was, I think, June.
June.
Almost.
Okay. Almost a year. Okay, and I want to ask some questions about the finances so we can clarify it. So you Monterey County applied for a grant.
Correct.
And it was granted for the amount of?
7.9, almost 8 million.
Okay, so we'll round off to 8 million. And how much of that is set aside for just the construction and the organization of what you showed us in this picture?
Originally, it was 4 million. It was almost a 50-50 split, council member. But because of the FEMA requirements and having to raise the entire site by 3 feet, it is now $5 million for the construction. And we're around 2.5, 2.7 for services.
Okay. And FEMA required that because at the time, you were looking for a place that was not in a flood zone.
Correct. I was exploring many areas, actually, in Pajaro as well.
Oh, okay, because we didn't get that at the time. You know, that you found that this was, and I think it was pointed out by the council, maybe Councilman Clark, that this Presbyterian church was also in a flood zone, knowing that that would cost a little bit more for construction.
Correct.
Okay. And so I'll stop there for just a moment before I go on to Santa Cruz County. So the question I have is, why doesn't Monterey County want to spend this money in Monterey County?
Well, the encampment resolution funding is very specific and targeted to identified encampment. Because of all of the issues that has been surrounding the Pajaro encampment, I think all of the jurisdictions are very much aware of how this went for the past few years with the flood, litigation, all of the other things that has been happening. Plus now there is the construction project that is well on its way. We had targeted this particular encampment as our highest priority because we wanted to ensure that we weren't just going to clean people out to do construction and have them flood the streets of both Pajaro and Watsonville.
Okay, but I'm still not clear why why Monterey County wouldn't want to spend the money in Monterey.
Well, unfortunately, in the town of Pajaro, I was not successful in identifying a location. And this is mostly because there are areas in Pajaro that we literally can't allow people to live on because it won't pass CEQAs and the NEPAs. There's a lot of areas in Pajaro that's like that. And unfortunately, it is fairly landlocked. During the Pajaro flood, we were looking for areas for us to build a place for folks to live that were displaced and was unsuccessful. So this has been a long time issue with the town of Pajaro and the county trying to identify places for people to go. When ultimately, because we are going to be serving city of Watsonville residents, it did make sense and because of the proximity of the city of Watsonville to the encampment and national best practices, saying you shouldn't move people too far away from their resources, it did make sense for us to explore if there's an opportunity here.
Okay, so then I'm gonna go back to the finances. So 5 million is now the standard for the construction.
Correct.
2.5 to 2.7 for services and the agency and everything else, action. How long is that gonna keep everything moving?
Well, ultimately, because the $1 million increase, we do have a shortfall for the second year, but our continuum of care is due to announce an award to the organization tomorrow, actually, and take vote. So our continuum of care is looking at giving an additional $500,000 to help fill the gap.
Okay, so go ahead and tell me what the first year then it costs for operations?
The first year of operations is just shy of $2 million.
Okay.
And
not shy of it, but it costs about 2 million.
Correct.
Okay, approximately. All right, in second year?
The second year, there will be a decrease, but we are also working with Central California Alliance on Health, which is our local managed care plan that serves both Monterey and Santa Cruz County, to see if they are willing and open to provide funding to help fill the gap on the second year as well. But it would not be too much of a difference, council member.
How much would it be?
We are still waiting for the final numbers from the service provider at this point.
So it's less than 2 million, but more than 1.5 million?
Correct.
Okay, so 1.5 to 2 million. And the third year?
The third year is outside of the scope of the encampment resolution grant.
Okay, so the third year, it goes away then?
Well, the encampment resolution grant does go away, but as...
Well, the monies go away.
Correct.
Okay, are there any committed monies for a third year?
As I had mentioned, we are currently working with the Continuum of Care. That funding is a 3-year grant. We are also working with the County of Santa Cruz and CCAH to fill the gap for the third year.
Okay, so you say, pardon my ignorance, the Continuum of Care, what is that?
So the Housing for Health Partnership is the Continuum of Care for Santa Cruz County, and on our side, it is the Coalition of Homeless Services Providers. It's a federally identified organization that leads the strategic planning for your region.
Okay. And they could give us up to $1 million or $2 million?
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah, and have they been known to give those awards locally?
Yes, they have.
And what was the last one that they gave them?
Oh, the continuum of care pushes out around $5 to $10 million a year
Locally?
in Monterey County.
In Monterey County?
Correct.
Okay. And in Santa Cruz County, do you know if?
I don't know that detail. I know we just got about $5 million from the last round of HAP funding, but I can't the questions that you just asked Roxana, I apologize. I don't have all that information right now, but I could follow up with it.
Okay, and what is the amount that we're looking for with Santa Cruz County?
The MOU basically implies that after the end of the encampment resolution grant, the project will be transferred to the county of Santa Cruz.
So after the first 2 years?
After the first 2 years, yes, council member.
And it's an MOU, and you say it implies? Doesn't state?
It states. I apologize. It's
Being
late,
a teacher, that
Councilmember.
means a lot. I was just saying, you know. So it states that it would be turned over to the county of Santa Cruz.
Correct.
Does it ask the county of Santa Cruz to put money ahead of time in the second year in a holding fund so that it is this, I don't want to use continuum care because that might mix it up, but you know, that it would continue without stopping and the funding would be already set for operations?
No, the MOU does not talk about the second year shortfall.
Okay.
We were actually not aware of that the shortfall was going to be that big until 2 months ago. The MOU went before then.
Okay, so there's the second year shortfall, and then there is the operations and management that's taken on by the county of Santa Cruz financially in the third year that is not implied but stated in the MOU.
Yes.
But there is no money put in any fund or bank account or reserve that is committed ahead of time at this point, and like you can.
Yeah, so again, I can speak to that. This navigation centers are one of the biggest priorities for the Housing for Health Partnership, doing these 3 low-barrier navigation centers in the county. And so we are continuously applying for funds and have been quite successful in bringing money into the county to develop housing. Unfortunately, we have not been successful with the local home key funding, but have continued to try.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And so we will continue to do that. And as I mentioned, that we've proposed dedicating $1 million from Measure K that just passed, as well as a portion of core funding toward homeless services. I also, I failed to mention that we've also talked about the opportunities that have arisen through CalAIM, through Medi-Cal billing to help pay for these types of services.
Oh, that was part of our presentation. Yeah.
Okay. As most individuals who would be living in the navigation center would qualify for additional services.
Shame on Robert for sending you. You tell him that. Because these are hard questions, and we just need to know. The people who
understand.
live here need to know.
Yeah.
We want to know that if we put this here, and it's going to be successful. It's not going to be a 2-year stint. I think Monterey County wants to know that.
Yes.
And as Councilman, what's your last name? Dutra, my brain, can only do
late.
so much in one day. Sorry about that, Jimmy. So that we'd all like to know how it's going to continue. And so once again, I'm feeling it like I felt it when you gave the first presentation, especially, I sit on PERFMA at the same time. Okay, so the clarification I have is what guaranteed, and this is for Santa Cruz County, Santa Cruz County was short. They came to PERFMA and they took $1 million away from what they had already committed in an MOU. Actually, worse than that, it was contractual. And why would they not do that to this program? I mean, I don't see it committed. I appreciate the K. That would be great. But if they meant it, they should do something about it because they have been less than successful. And are they aware of their lack of success in South County with the Home Key project and their efforts?
Well,
I'm asking, yeah.
yeah, so.
I mean, I know Robert and you guys care, okay, but the supervisors, the people who make the final decisions, do they understand what they're asking of this community and of Monterey County with that kind of financial commitment?
Right. I think one thing that is coming to mind as we're having this conversation is that the navigation center, like we would be, for some time, we've been looking at how can we provide shelter throughout the county, including in South County. And so this was actually an opportunity to do that. I completely understand the concerns that you're expressing and wanting to make sure that this is not a one-time thing and then people just walk away. I think that one of the challenges as it relates to any of these projects, not just this one, because there's 2 others in the county we're working towards, is the uncertainty of the funding. We continue to be successful in obtaining some funding. We have not yet been successful as Home Key, but we'll keep trying. And we are also trying to be very intentional about in recognizing that South County has been underserved, and we're trying to really repair that. I apologize, I wanted to say one other thing. So the funding, we continue to pursue it, but it is almost like some of the other projects that were discussed earlier, like the rail trail, for example. We start with, when we've got an opportunity for funding, we're going to start and move forward. And with the faith that we're going to continue to prioritize it and find a way to make it continue. We also are continuously advocating with the state that we need stable funding. Most of this comes from short-term grants. This is a 2-year grant to do a major project. And it's been that way for the last number of years. And so through all of our avenues and associations that we have at the state level, we're advocating that this needs to be more stable funding so we can really make a difference and have progress in this space, here locally. But as you know, it's not just a local issue as well, it's statewide.
You wanted to say something?
Oh, I was just going to mention that, even on our side of the county, Councilman, remember, we can't guarantee what 3 years is going to look like for any nonprofit. But what we do is we operate in good faith. And right now we have a need, right now we have the money, and right now we have people who need help. So that's the way we're going to move, and we're going to keep pushing until we have to make decisions, because of failure for us to get more stable funding from the state. But, I think as long, we were able to gather a list of, I believe it was over 70 individuals from the river when we were initially applying. We have their names and phone numbers, and they said that if you do build it, we do want to be first in line to go. We do have the list.
Well, we do have, yeah, I'm sure you do. And we have a 15% increase on that number at least now.
I have
So the other thing I have a question, and I will keep Mayor focused on questions rather than opinions at this time. I have a question on because I've seen a couple models. We've been up to San Francisco, we saw the model there. We've been out to Alameda, we saw the model there. We haven't been down to, what is it, Santa Barbara, yeah, to see that yet. Who is going to be running this program, and how much experience do they have?
So we are currently in conversations with Community Action Board. They do have several other homeless service programs on the actual site that can be leveraged to assist this population in moving into permanent housing. We also have technical assistance providers that we have access to assist Community Action Board in their expansion of services. But as it stands right now, we do not have an actual contract. We are hoping to have the contract finalized by next week.
And has CAB done this before?
CAB has not run a housing navigation center, although they do have housing navigation services at their site.
Okay, but they haven't run it, so is there any kind of licensing they have to go through?
No, there's not.
There's not?
Correct.
Okay, because the two, just for my observation and as the council maybe observes, the two places that I've seen so far, well-intentioned, both of them, but one's run beautifully and the other one is a horror story. And I would not like to be the horror story if it
Me neither.
happens. No, I think we all would not. But that's about experience and background. Have you explored anyone else? Not that CAB isn't a great organization. It's a great organization. But have you explored anyone else that has a really good background, excellent recommendations? You can go out and see what they do.
Yeah, so we originally was negotiating with Home First. They're out of the Bay Area. I do believe some of the council members have visited some of their sites. Unfortunately, because, I apologize, but it is in full transparency, because of the lack of support from the community, they were getting, they requested that they hire full-time staff members just to do community engagement because of all of the uproar of this project. And unfortunately, it was outside of the scope of our budget for us to provide them the extra staff members that they were requesting. So we all agreed very cordially that maybe next time. And we do have programs in the County of Monterey that I would be happy to put up as options. But I'm also taking into consideration the local need. And Community Action Board has a phenomenal reputation in this community, and I do believe that they also care very much about their reputation and their ability to do services that's going to be in alignment with their mission, and that is why we're moving forward with negotiating with them.
I appreciate your positivity, like Jimmy says.
It's the only way to get through it,
Hey,
council
you're
member.
doing a great job on that. But I'm a sixth grade teacher. You put me in a kindergarten class and it's going to be ugly. And so, experience means something. I'm just saying it.
It does.
It won't be ugly for the kids. It'll be ugly for me. I don't think I'll survive it. But I just want you to know that I hear you. And thank you for the transparency on saying that the lack of community support, which transfers to, hey, we just have questions. Yeah. And hey, you're not being completely accurate in your answers and they change. And hey, transitional housing may take a little longer than 6 months and you're going to be okay with that, aren't you? I mean, all these things came up, so I can understand if they wanted some major flexibility that was already difficult for the people in the community to deal with, as it were. I will end my comments and questions. Sorry, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, do you have any other questions? Councilmember Montesino?
Yeah, just to answer Councilmember Dutra's, we have had meetings, robust meetings, community, a lot of it is fear. I'll tell you that. Because as you see around the communities, we all seen Main Street is littered with the recitar and all with no services. The county has given people vouchers and we have those built old hotel buildings. So there you go. That's where a lot of people vision these fears and anxiety about what that will be. When we gotta, try to do something different. And this is trying to do something different. I wish we could have that grant for the home key and hopefully the county, I don't know how we can, continue to advocate for that designation, because it'd be wonderful to have that so we can transition potentially some people from that area to the next. But one of my questions is how can we work towards, because we've been sort of in limbo because of the, we had to align where the community was going to be in, the flood zone and all of that. How can we put more people at ease? How can we, bring community? I know some council members had the fortunate to be already been visiting other areas, but can we, now that we have a date, sort of the time frame, how can we go out to sort of we're gonna have, I think, another community meeting next week, but it's still, how can we put people at ease through the Community Action Board with their personnel, or because it's a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear of the unknown, and you're bringing more where we're already dealing with some
I can speak from my experience with the Share Center. The Share Center, as I mentioned, is the largest navigation center. It is built in a part of the city of Salinas where the neighbors definitely stood up and was very opposed to the project. Some of the strategies that the county and the city are implementing is, again, creating neighborhood groups so that the neighborhood groups can meet with the service provider, meet with the governments that's overseeing the project, and let us know what their issues are so that we can try to do this in partnership. As I mentioned earlier, humans are humans. Schools, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're at. Get a lot of humans together, they do human things. But we definitely feel like this is a partnership with the neighborhood. I think all of us want everyone to feel like this is an asset and not a burden. And if it becomes a burden, well, technically, we don't have funding past a couple of years, so we can revisit this project and see if it's working. And I do ask the council to take in consideration those couple of years, because the startups, it takes a minute for the project to orient itself. But I think that there's opportunities for us to continue revisiting the efficacy of this program, re-engage with the neighbors. Inside of the Good Neighbor policy, I am requesting that the service provider hold open houses twice a year. Also do outreach to the neighborhoods at least once a year, letting them know who they can contact on the site if they believe that their clients are creating disturbances within the community. And I'm also open to anything that the city council would like for us to include in this Good Neighbor policy as well. We'll do our best for us to build up this relationship with the city.
Yeah, I really like that neighborhood, communication, piece, which would be not once, but twice, at least twice a year, just to keep in touch with that segment, because I know it butts to a few houses around there, and they're the ones that were more fearful of, I guess, loiterings.
Oh, another strategy is originally we were looking at the entry and exit of the site to be off of Cherry Court, and based off of the new rendering, it looks like the exit will not be through Cherry Court any longer. So again, we took all of your comments to heart and took it into consideration as we were designing the project. So thank you all for all of your input.
Thank you.
Councilmember Salcido.
Good evening. Could you please go back to the slide that has the different squares with the different topics?
Oh, yes, this one.
Thank you. So I just wanted to I had some follow-up questions about the squares. So I know you're still in conversation with, it sounds like Community Action Board is going to be your partner. Is that accurate?
That is what we're working towards, yes.
Okay, and so are you negotiating these items, starting with security and cameras, is that something you are negotiating with Community Action Board? Or is that something that you are requiring? What is the system of negotiation around these topics?
It's already included in the proposed budget.
Great, and so are they contracting that out with another firm? Is it 24-hour security? What's the nature of that proposal and budget?
I think, if I recall correctly, and I do apologize if I'm incorrect, but I believe the budget had security in the evening because there will be a substantial number of staff members during the daytime.
Okay, so it would be evening security, something like that?
I do believe that is correct.
And any idea for cameras?
Cameras will be 24 hours.
The 24-hour cameras, okay. And then I was interested in the Good Neighbor policy. What is that what type, is that an agreement with the neighbors, with the Community Action Board? And then what's the remedy for breach?
Well, I think it's an agreement between all members, the clients, the Community Action Board, and the neighborhood. I think good neighbors is reciprocal, right? So we definitely want to make sure that the neighborhood also shows up and lets us know when there's issues. But we're trying to create the pathways for the neighborhood to do that, as I had explained earlier. There's other things in there, as I mentioned, that our Lived Experience Advisory Board is reviewing, but things like we ask that you don't use obscene language extremely loud. There's children around, we're at a church, there's neighborhoods. I mean, we're not asking for people to feel like they're in prison, but just have respect for the neighborhood. And similarly, no loitering in other people's properties and things of that sort. But we're still in draft form, and it is, like I mentioned, our lived experience board has provided their comments, and we're updating the document now.
You mean lived experience, like people who've lived experience with homelessness, or both, or the neighbors, is that?
It's the people who with lived experience of homelessness. So Monterey County has, or county, excuse me, has two lived experience boards. One is called LEAD. These are generally people who are over the age of 25. Many of them have experience with chronic homelessness. And they help us understand the issues that they've experienced with our systems. And it helps us make better decisions when we're developing policies, pursuing grants, contracting with organizations. LEAD actually reviews all of those things before we submit. And we also have a second lived experience advisory board called YAB. And there are people who are 18 to 24 years old. And they also have a lot of insight for us.
So I guess my question is, the neighbors, the people who live here, may have a different expectation of what a good neighbor means than someone with lived experience. So in what way are they going to be describing their policies? And again, what is the remedy for breach? So if you're not following the rules, what happens?
So, honestly, everything is handled on a case-by-case basis, right? You don't want to over-punish somebody for something that can totally be remedied. It is a low-barrier housing navigation center. That means that we're not creating arbitrary barriers to entry, and we're also not creating rules that make it difficult for any adult to navigate. But it's really based on respect. So when it comes down to the neighborhoods, once I have my final draft, we will present it to the neighborhood and also get their input. So this is my proposal to the neighborhood, and I'm hoping that I could get it done before the next meeting, get their input before we finalize it with all parties and include it in the contract with CAB.
Okay, and if there is behavior that is in breach of this policy, could part of the remedy be potential removal from the shelter itself?
Absolutely. I mean, behavior is the number one indicator. If people are intoxicated, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be exited. It depends on if you become violent, if you become hostile towards staff or the neighbors. That is a reason to be exited. But just being intoxicated can really be resolved if you just tell someone to go to their room and sleep it off.
Right, and I had a conversation with Housing First when they were here before regarding the difference between, for example, somebody being under the influence and intoxicated versus active use on site of drugs and alcohol. That policy of active use of drugs, alcohol on site is still completely prohibited versus like leaving and coming back. Is that policy still the same, and will that be drafted somewhere?
That is correct. It is still a county contract, so the county definitely has rules about what you do when you're being funded, or when you're what's allowable with the funds that we're using to fund this project. So active drug use on site is a reason to be excused from the program permanently. We haven't really discussed if there's going to be a way for within a certain amount of time someone can return. That actually probably needs to be a conversation with community development, with the office here, and see if there's any city rules that would exclude someone from being able to return.
Okay. And then, is there a reason Community Action Board couldn't come tonight, or are we going to be hearing from them? Why aren't they there?
They're here.
Why aren't they in front
They're
of?
here.
I would love to hear from Community Action Board regarding, they haven't had specifically a transitional housing project. I would love to hear from them how they're prepared to take on this task. I think that they are an amazing organization. I just sang their praises during my 2 minutes. They have a lot of different community ties here in Watsonville, but I would love for them to be sitting next to you, because in 2 years, you won't really actually be funding. The County of Monterey is exiting after this grant, frankly, right? Like, there's nothing in 3 years to tell me what's going to be happening here, but I know Community Action Board will be here. So I would truly love to hear from them about what they've done to prepare for this project. I don't know if that's possible or not. I'll leave it to the mayor to make that decision. It sounds like they want to come up, but.
We're here if there's time. Yeah. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Helen Yoon-Story. I'm the Assistant Director and COO of Community Action Board.
Good evening, buenas tardes. Paz Padilla, Director of Programs and Impact for Community Action Board.
Thank you for giving us time. So, you know, we are here in support. We've been in long-term conversations, it's several months, with the County of Monterey and County of Santa Cruz, and also with City of Watsonville Department. Because just as we talked about before, I mean, we know that there needs to be some solutions to homelessness in this community, and certainly around the levee. We are interested in being involved. We want to be part of the solution, and we want it to be successful. As we acknowledge, we have not run this type of facility yet, but we've been doing our research. We've worked very closely with the county, with the city, and other partners. And I know Paz Marilena de la Garza, our CEO, is out of town right now, so she wasn't able to be here tonight. But I know that we've done a number of site visits as well to observe and learn from other successful programs. You know, and we've done a lot of phone calling and stuff, and I want to defer to my colleague Paz here, who's done some of that research, to talk a little bit about what we've done to increase our knowledge, our comfort with being involved in this project, and, you know, as we've gone down this path.
Yeah. Happy to share with you. I think we've been working with homeless here in Watsonville since 2019. And our services, our staff has been connected and is connected with our homeless population here in Watsonville. Watsonville Works being one of our programs who have been very, very supportive and very helping our homeless with wraparound services. They have really impacted our community, both with wraparound services and beautifying Watsonville. We started our navigation component, housing navigation component. Currently, we have 2 staff members who are out there connecting individuals currently with housing. One of the things that the county was able to do in the past year and a half is create connectors. We have currently a connector staffed through CAB. This connector is the one who is reaching out directly to the homeless, connecting them with housing and any wraparound services that they have. So we have had that experience, and we continue looking for other venues and trainings so we can continue training our staff. However, with this new program, we have all the intentions of hiring new staff. These staffs are going to be intensive case managers with advocates who are going to be working 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. So it's going to be a whole new program, but at least we have the basis and we have the foundation with our Watsonville Works, with our Youth Homeless Response Team, and with our housing navigators and our connectors. So there is a plan in place, and it's going to take time to really, with this new program or these new staff members, build capacity and continue reaching out to our homeless and working with them.
And I just want to add too, you know, we're very committed to trauma-informed care, motivational interviewing, you know, best practices and evidence-based practices that are used to be successful. You know, I just want to say again, we want this project to be just as successful as the city does and as the counties do, and we're very committed to that. You know, like I said, we're still in conversation, so, you know, we're not at the place of contract yet. But we've had a lot of discussions about all the various aspects we've been talking about, security, you know, training, all the different aspects to go into running this kind of program. And so, you know, we look forward to continue to walk this path because we know that, you know, we see it, we observe it, right? There's a lot of folks that need opportunity for housing at the levee. And so we want to be part of a solution here and a successful solution, both for those who will be at the tiny village and definitely the neighbors. We're very committed. I mean, you know, all of us live in this community, right, or very close to. And so, you know, I think we would want this center to be just as successful as if it was right next door to us. So I will tell you that for us, our commitment is that this works well for those participating as well as the community and the neighbors.
And I think one of the things that, starting from the right foot, is we were able to hire Emily Watson. She is a master social worker who knows the CalAIM language that maybe I don't know, or Maria Elena or Helen, and she has worked miracles. She knows, and she's making us learn and understand how the CalAIM, so we can have extra funding when it comes third year. So that to me is the right direction in hiring Emily Watson.
Yeah, I mean, we're just as concerned as you are in terms of sustainability. I think that we're committed to having a first 2 years that are very successful. The picture is still being painted in about year 3. But we are up for collaborating, with the counties, with the city, other state grants, other funding through CalAIM in order to make it successful. And obviously, I think as we acknowledged earlier, if there aren't enough funds at that point, I think that's a stop point to assess and see what the future holds there. But I would say that, as we progress in this and before we sign off, in a contract, our commitment is that this is a successfully designed, resourced project that, serves and respects the needs of all involved.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Other questions from council?
Had one more question for Community Action Board. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing the additional presentation. I appreciate it. I honestly like a local nonprofit better than someone who is not as familiar with our community. You live here, you've been here. I know 3 years from now, Community Action Board's still going to be here, whereas some of the other partners, I don't know where they're going to be, right? But you'll be here. I appreciate particularly your dedication to the good neighbor policy. What that means in applicability, the devil's in the details. I would love to see that policy. And please, coordinate with us and give it to us if that's something that you can do. What is the remedy for breach? Because you don't want it to be, the first 5 times it happens, you don't really know how to be effective in that space. You don't know what it looks like to remove someone if unfortunately you have to. So I just want assurances from you that that'll be well thought out and you'll be prepared for that. And I appreciate that you're nodding your head and that's something that you're dedicated to. The second component is that security aspect, which I'm glad that you also share, both the safety of the residents, safety of the neighbors, that's going to be a very safe space.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
It's a priority. Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you so much. I appreciate also the time given to the Community Action Board to speak on this topic. I'm glad you brought the CalAIM, because that was my question, is what services provided through this center would be or could qualify potentially to get reimbursed through that program. And it seems like a lot of them, since it is going to be wraparound services, mental health, drug interventions, and so forth. So thank you for addressing that. The way I view this program is really as a pilot program, right? And a way to really give it a chance, right? I don't think we have something like this in this community that really provides that intensive support. I think our houseless community here in Watsonville is very diverse, and so we do need that continuum of services. Not everyone's gonna need the intense care that others may need, but it is a starting point. And I'd rather start somewhere and give something a chance that has a proven record in some cases of success versus not doing anything about the situation that we're seeing. Out of the surrounding cities, we were the only city that saw an increase in homelessness. So for me, I'm willing to do something different and give it a try. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least we tried. So I am in support of this idea. I am grateful that you took the time to really take into account the feedback that council provided at the last council meeting, the security component, the cameras, the community engagement, talking to the neighbors, because I think that is important. As you mentioned it before, I think we need the buy-in of the community to make something successful. I do have concerns regarding the sustainability after that second year, right? But it's been my experience that when you have a gem, when you have something that works, something that's effective and efficient, you attract funding. So let's just make it that. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark?
Hello, thank you. First question is for anyone that wants to answer. Someone comes into the village and they refuse services. They just want to stay there for however long they can. What do you do with that? Is it a policy where you have to receive services or you can just kind of park there?
So you want to take that for the Housing First kind of
Yeah.
perspective?
So Housing First essentially means there's no barriers to entry, right? So we're trying to remove as many possible reasons why somebody would be turned away that's reasonable. Once they're into the program, there is an expectation that they start working towards their housing goals. And I think that that's the biggest one from my perspective. We did not prepare for that question, council members, so I don't know if Santa Cruz has a different theory, but I also know that in my experience personally running Project Roomkey in Monterey County and having 130 individuals, most of them who has not ever touched the homeless service network ever, because they did not trust the network, they didn't trust the government, but because they were referred by doctors, they are now in this program. We had a lot of success because we allowed people to settle in, decompress, deal with their trauma, and then work towards housing. And it was not 6 months, I will note that. But we were able to house 83% of the entire population of chronically homeless individuals with high acute needs. So I think that there is something to be said about allowing people to come inside first, and then for us to start working on what's next once they settle in. But there is an expectation from our county that they are moving towards some housing goal, because there's a lot of people who would love their own personal space. This is not like most shelters that we have across the country. We're trying to do something very innovative here, and we don't want to hold up time when other individuals who really want to move towards housing can get into that bed.
I appreciate that there's an expectation, but is there a policy? Has anybody thought about this? Has this been discussed? Because, that person could be taking up space for someone who actually does want services, and, this may or may not happen, but just out of curiosity.
Currently, no, we don't have an actual policy towards that, but if that's something that the council would like for us to discuss with the service provider and also with our partner county, I think that there's some language that we could come up that could be helpful.
Is there a policy in regards to the 6-month stay?
Right now, the state and subsequently your ordinance identifies emergency shelters of having 6 months maximum stays.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the last meeting I was at, the community meeting at the church, the people doing the presentation told me that they would not adhere to that 6 months. And so what I'm asking is, have you had a change of heart? Because that was not acceptable to me.
Yes, I recall, Councilmember. Actually, Dignity Moves is not going to be the operator of this program. Yes. They are developing the site. It's going to be CAB. So the conversations will be with CAB on determining what the policies and procedures are going to be. And they're here today to hear you.
Okay, so yes, no one can stay more than 6 months within a calendar year. So it's not 6 months and they go out for a day, then they come back in for another 6 months within the calendar year. So that is one thing that I feel is going to keep this from being successful, which is one of the myriad of reasons that I have concerns with this. So please take that into account, and I would love to hear what sort of a maybe fast track you might be able to come up with. The fact, and I love CAB as well, but you guys don't have experience in this, and this is very, very specialized stuff that you're going into, and I applaud you for this because this is scary work, okay? What sort of training are you getting your staff? How many staff are you planning on getting? I mean, this is a huge project. Are your staff prepared for being physically aggressed against if somebody is under the influence of an illicit drug? if someone is using illicit drugs on site? I mean, is that just 0, you're out? I mean, this whole, oh, well, maybe, you know, they won't do it again, that doesn't float. I mean, we need to have some real strict standards here, or it's just going to be a total mess. And, you know, our emergency services are already taxed, you know, and this has the potential of adding to that. And unfortunately, the city is not being compensated for any of that. So, and also, sorry, one last little question. You made the statement that you had been speaking with individuals at the city. I would like to know who those individuals are. When you're saying you've been speaking with people at the county, and you also said at the city, so who at the city you've been speaking with in regards to this?
Well, it would be who we speak to about contracting possibilities, you know, city manager and community housing development.
Okay, how long have those conversations been going on?
Well, probably, several months.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember when I joined
We started
it.
conversation in 2023, and then. I'm sorry. We started conversations in 2023.
Okay.
But then recently, we just started conversations, November, October 2023.
If I can clarify? So there's a partners meeting where we're talking about timelines and things of that sort. The things that need to happen with the site, it's actually probably too big of a meeting in which your community development department has been invited to those meetings. A lot of that is because we are trying to construct, and we need to ensure that we understand what the city requires of us to move forward.
Okay.
Right. Sorry to not clarify. Those were group meetings, right?
Okay. So how many staff do you plan on hiring with, and how do you plan to train them?
Well, we have an extensive staffing plan, several case managers, several advocates, including overnight security. And our plan would be, like I said, using evidence-based practices, right? So trauma-informed care, motivational interviewing, de-escalation training. You know, there's a lot of established trainings for, you know, organizations that run these programs. So, you know, that's our plan. We have money in our budget plan for some training for staff. We have also factored in some, you know, overtime if someone calls out sick, we can pull someone else in. So I want to tell you, you know, again, we have been just as concerned about making sure that this project has what it needs to be successful, as I think that you are. And so we've gone over many configurations, and again, I defer to Paz and her team who's been involved in this, but we've had many conversations about that in terms of staffing teams, including what we've seen to be successful in other communities. So that's what we're modeling on.
And Councilmember Clark, if I can also clarify something, one of the questions that you were asking earlier about if somebody comes and doesn't want to leave, or and then if they leave temporarily after having been there 6 months and come back. Because the design of this navigation center, it's not the typical shelter that we may imagine from, what I imagine from movies and stuff where people line up and pop in for the day. People would be referred into the program. So I don't know if that, just to visually paint the different
I understand
picture.
how the program works.
Okay.
I actually myself have visited multiple programs like this throughout California. My issue is that those programs are not falling under the emergency shelter law from the state of California. So they don't have the 6-month barrier that you do here at the Presbyterian Church. So no one person can reside there for more than 6 months. Gotcha. And that's what I meant by they can't be there 6 months, go out for a day, then come back for another 6 months. It has to be within a calendar year. Mm-hmm. So that kind of already sets it up for failure almost, because you may not have enough time to actually serve someone, right, for them to actually go through the whole program. So I'm just voicing that concern again.
If I could cut in. So we're getting a little bit into the weeds here. If it's my understanding that CAB does not have a finalized contract, this program is still in the process, and I'm thinking that perhaps we can bring this back when it's a little more fleshed out. That would be appropriate.
Okay. But I mean, I've asked these questions a million times and like still have not really gotten an answer. So I will move on. How have you been notifying the neighborhoods, the neighbors, the businesses?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So I guess you guys said that you have been notifying the neighborhood about this. How have you been doing that?
So there was two community engagement meetings. One of them was within the immediate radius of the church. The church had went door to door, knocking on the and passing out flyers, letting the community know that we will be hosting our first community engagement meeting at the church. There was another community engagement meeting. I believe that the city had led that one. And that one was at, I forgot the name of the building. It was a park.
Okay.
I'm sorry. And that one actually had a great turnout. There was several people who showed up to that meeting as well. And we were planning on to continue to engage.
Okay. Forgive my ignorance, but we know that Monterey County, the Board of Supervisors, approved this morning. Has Santa Cruz County approved this yet?
We approved the MOU with Monterey County on March 26th during that same board meeting that Robert gave the update.
Last month. Okay. Okay, perfect. And then my last question is in regards to, well, second to last question, the other two shelters that this county is planning within the county, do they have long-term funding, or is it the same situation as this?
I'm sorry, I was confirming something.
No,
I
that's
just
fine.
told you.
So the other two shelters, do they have more long-term funding, or is it the same situation like this where it's all up in the air and we don't really know?
Similar situation, that we have funding for a certain period of time, knowing that we will need to continue to pursue additional federal and state funding and put some local funding to it, and hopefully work with the other jurisdictions so that's a joint effort in that.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. As I said before, this is a little bit, we're getting a little bit in the weeds, and we don't have the story, so we can't write the ending yet. We don't have a lot of answers to these questions. I appreciate your patience. Cab, I appreciate you being here to answer some questions as well. And hopefully we can have you back. So that CalAIM funding is very, very important. There is money for the houselessness issue. I recently spoke with the governor's representative from the governor's office, and the governor is very interested in tackling this issue. There's money available for it, so I'm not super concerned that we won't be able to fund it after the 2-year period. But as I said before, we are going to hear from you both again, so thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here. And with that, we are going to... Yes.
Appreciate that you all came down and were willing and as best as possible, as the story is completely unwritten. But you understand our concern because we are the story in many ways, and the people who live here in Watsonville. And so being a part of the process, as we talked about inclusivity, is huge. I don't think don't perceive it as negativity, perceive it as concern. And asking some hard questions that you will, in the end, have to answer to make it a successful program. And so that's where many of us are coming from, because that's what we hear from our constituencies and the concerns that are out there. So I think we're all willing and able to be a part of this conversation on a regular basis, and part of it is we haven't been a part of the conversation. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Can we move forward with this, as this is just a presentational item?
I mean, if we can't do it,
All of council has made several comments, and it's a time for questions. I've allowed many, many questions. We've been on this item for quite some time. Can you please make it brief, Councilmember Dutra? Thank
Yeah.
you.
I mean, I think this is a really important issue that a lot of people in the community are talking about. I know.
I agree, but as I said before, we don't have all the information that we need. That's why we're going to bring this item back.
Okay, I just wanted to make a couple comments. Thank you. I do want, because Cab wasn't up there when I was originally speaking as well. And I do want to say that I know that I have to agree with, I think, what Crystal Salcido said as well, that having a local organization, I think that they're going to be, it's going to be more important to them to make sure that it's successful, you know, had it been somebody from the outside. So I really believe that, you know, Paz and Helen are going to make sure that it on that side, it's going to be successful. And hearing you guys, what you said about who you've already worked on hiring and you've already put into motion makes me feel better about that side of it. I do want to say that I hear all day long, this is a serious issue about what we're dealing with. I had to deal with an encampment in the Kmart shopping center where people were throwing needles into backyards of their neighbors. I mean, this is something I had to deal with for months and months and months and months and months and months. And so, and now we're dealing with the Safeway issue across the street. We just got a presentation last week. I think that's in Councilmember Orozco's district. I mean, we're dealing with serious encampment issues that have needles and just unsafe situation. And so I just want to make sure that this is going to be successful and also safe for the people inside of it. People walk out in front of these streets all the time. I mean, we're dealing with people who are dealing with serious mental health and addiction issues. So there needs to be a real serious, we need to pay attention to the safety aspect of it because there's probably gonna be a lot of women in there that are gonna be giving the services and people maybe sometimes by themselves without security. So I wanna make sure that they're gonna be in a safe situation as well because we do see people walking around on the streets in downtown Santa Cruz. See, now I'm confused where I am because it looks like downtown Santa Cruz, but in downtown Watsonville now, you know? And so, and we don't want, I know my goal when I was here is we wanted to redevelop downtown. We wanted to make downtown this amazing place. And I'm going to tell you right now that I think that if this is not successful, we may lose the opportunity to ever bring Watsonville's downtown back again. So, and that's just the reality. So, thank you.
All right, once again, thank you for your patience. I appreciate you answering all the questions, and we look forward to hearing back from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Look
And
forward
with
to coming
that,
back.
we're going to move on to item 11A, resolution adopting the City of Watsonville Urban Forestry Management Plan.
Alrighty. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Nick Kalubaka, Parks and Community Services Director. I'm really excited to be here tonight to present on our urban forest management plan. We are seeking council adoption of this plan tonight. This really marks the culmination of about 2 years worth of work with our partners at Watsonville Wetlands Watch, along with Davie Resource Group, along with our friends in community development and public works as well. Before I get too far into this presentation, I'd like to give the rest of our presentation team up here a chance to introduce themselves. So,
Good evening, Jonathan Pilch, Executive. Good evening, Jonathan Pilch, Executive Director of Watsonville Wetlands Watch. Happy to be here with you all this evening.
Good evening, Council. I'm Joe Medina, Parks Superintendent, City of Watsonville.
And good evening, Council. I'm Principal Consultant with Davie Resource Group, Tina McKeon.
alrighty, so just a quick reminder and recap of why we're here in the first place. The Urban Forest Management Plan, the development of, along with all of the other kind of associated activities that we'll talk about tonight, are all funded through a grant that we received a couple years ago from CAL FIRE, all with the intent of growing our urban forest and working on things like climate sequestration and kind of general cooling of our environment as well. So again, we're really excited to be here tonight, and our recommendation tonight is that the council adopt our urban forest management plan. I'm going to pass things to the rest of the team, who will run through our slideshow presentation.
Great, thanks, Nick. A lot of people think about planting trees in a community as only an environmental issue. But really, planting trees is as much a public health issue and concern as it is an environmental issue. Watsonville Wetlands Watch has been a close partner with the city of Watsonville. I'm really pleased to be here tonight with such hardworking staff members and our consultant team who've spent the last several years really diving into the issue of how do we move forward increasing the city's tree canopy. In 2012, the city adopted an urban greening plan to expand tree canopy, and this has been a really positive step forward in realizing that work. Trees are an essential part of the community's infrastructure. There's a tremendous amount of studies that demonstrate the value of community trees as a public health asset. For instance, up to 18-degree street trees can lower surface temperatures by up to 18 degrees, which is really important in a community where we're expected to see increased extreme heat days, especially for vulnerable residents. Trees also have the value of boosting academic achievement and performance for young students in our community. A study in 2018 of 319 schools in Chicago showed that students improve their math scores and reading scores based on both tree canopy on their campuses as well as trees within a 1,000-meter radius around the school campus, even when factoring in economic and social factors. There's been a tremendous amount of work that demonstrates both the physical health benefits and the mental health benefits associated with increasing tree canopy. In particular, the work at the Center for Greater Good at University of California, Berkeley, and others have shown the value of reducing cortisol levels, stress hormones when walking by trees, as well as engendering empathetic actions, a sense of community, a sense of place, and a lot of, as well as reducing asthma within a community. In addition to all of that, trees increase property values, they sequester greenhouse gases, they capture atmospheric carbon and improve biodiversity, especially important in a community like Watsonville surrounded by wetlands. It's important to recognize that access to shade is often unequally distributed, and it often is invested in low-income communities and communities with the highest numbers of vulnerable residents who would most benefit from that shade. In the city, that same theme can be seen within the Monterey Bay and Bay Area region. The city of Watsonville sits at the bottom of this bar graph at 9.4% tree canopy cover, lower than the city of San Jose, Morgan Hill, Pacific Grove, and significantly lower than the city of Santa Cruz, which has nearly 40% tree canopy cover. We've done a tremendous amount of work in advancing the goals of increasing tree canopy cover in the city. Since 2018, when we secured the Watsonville Wetlands Watch and the city secured our first grants for this work, we've secured over $1.5 million towards implementation and planning, including a recent $309,000 grant for planning of green school campuses in the Pajaro Valley Unified School District. We've planted and established 775 shade trees on parks, streets, and neighborhoods throughout the city, distributed 1,300 free fruit trees to city residents at monthly free fruit tree workshops. We've employed 60 paid high school interns in this work who are learning about urban forestry and progressing on their academic path. We've planted trees at every city park and 4 schools, supported 4,000 volunteer hours, 45 different community planting days, and have moved the needle by increasing city tree canopy from 7.8% in 2012 to 9.4% as of this study. I'm happy to say and happy to be here to say that when the city adopted its urban greening plan, it was really an aspirational, visionary document without a lot of thoughtfulness or reality as far as how to get to this 30% tree canopy. We're here today with a real roadmap that has analyzed both our assets and our challenges and has thoughtfully presented a way forward to reach our canopy goals.
So we kicked this project off in November of 2021, right in the middle of COVID. So that presented a lot of challenges and obviously affected our timeline as well. I think the biggest challenge we had was with the community engagement, but we came up with some really creative ways to reach out and talk to the community, and I feel like we were really successful. We did collect a tree inventory. That was one of the very first things we did. 4,500 community trees were collected. We completed a community tree resource analysis to set baselines for that tree inventory with condition, age distribution, species diversity to see how many different species you have, and also how resilient the urban forest is. We did a tree canopy and land cover assessment, which looked top down with high resolution imagery on the entire community and mapped tree canopy along with other primary land cover. We did a background review where we looked at your current policies and visionary documents to really understand where Watsonville wants to be in the future and what your goals are and what your community really cares about. We did looked at operations, funding, staffing, services provided by the city for public trees and also engagement, also the Watsonville Wetlands Watch and what they're doing in the community. We did some ordinance development, which was actually a big part of the project. So we started off looking at your preserving or protecting trees that are public trees, community trees. And then we also looked at how to protect canopy overall. So we ended up also writing a third ordinance as part of this project. We'll talk about more about all of these things. As I said, we had community and stakeholder engagement, which included an online survey, a virtual presentation. We had a landing page. I'll talk a little bit more about those details in a minute on some future slides here. We created a story map, which if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I hope you do. It's a public-facing document on the website where you can explore Watsonville's canopy and all of the resources in the urban forest. Talks about the benefits. You can zoom in on different areas of town and understand the distribution of canopy, as well as its relationship with other land cover like impervious surface, where you can't necessarily have a lot of trees when you have a lot of impervious surface. So they're very heavily related to each other. We also created a tree guide, and that's a Watsonville tree guide, so it's very specific to the city of Watsonville. It has tree species that are recommended for the community, shows pictures of the different species. There's a walk in there. I think Jonathan's going to talk a little bit more of that in a future slide. And we created this really cool tool called Tree Keeper Canopy that's great for engaging with partners. It's also a web-based tool that's public-facing. And you can essentially do a planning project with dynamic priorities. So there's a whole bunch of priorities you can select from, and you can prioritize them as high or low, or you can not prioritize them at all. And once you select your priorities and hit the button, it will light up areas of the community where you would focus tree planting to meet those priorities. So if it's equitable tree canopy, you're looking to plant canopy or more trees where you have less canopy, then you would identify the census tracts and the census block groups within town that would give you the most bang for your buck in those plantings. And then finally, we delivered an urban forest management plan, which we're asking you to adopt tonight. And that's a 50-year plan. Thanks. So back to a little more detail about community outreach. We had a dedicated project landing page from the very beginning of the project. And what was great about this page is that we could share information with the community, and they could also select the language that they preferred to receive the information in. Now that didn't necessarily apply to the reports, the downloadable PDFs, but it did apply to a lot of the information on the site. And that was tied in with a story map. We did an online survey where we got 245 responses. We completed 2 virtual community meetings, and those happened in August of 2022. We did tabling at farmers markets, and again, this was during COVID, So we had all these protocols, but we were able to discuss concerns about the urban forest and the community's ideas of what they'd like to see in the plan. And we had tablets where they could take the survey on the site, or they could take a QR code with their phone and take the survey on their phone, and we would help them, walk them through that process or answer any questions that they had, all while maintaining social distancing. We met with the council in August 29th, 2023, where we did a study session on the ordinance. And what we heard a lot from community members, I think, is that there's a lot of challenges and opportunities for the urban forest, and that there really is a high support, or a high level of support, for increasing tree canopy.
So just to quickly define the urban forest, it's a collection of woody trees and shrubs that grow within an urban area. This collection forms our tree canopy, which benefits include many that Jonathan mentioned earlier. The urban forest adds aesthetically and environmentally to the quality of life for both locals and in the neighboring communities. The benefits were echoed by the public during community outreach. Private trees include residential, commercial, and industrial areas. Public trees and the public tree resource includes trees on streets, right-of-ways, in parks, and in city facilities. The UFMP focuses primarily on public trees, but there are goals and objectives that include engagement with residents on private property to facilitate additional tree planting and canopy expansion.
So when we started this, the main thing we wanted to do is establish some baselines for the community tree inventory and also for the overall urban forest within Watsonville. So we started with that tree inventory. We had certified arborists go out to each community tree, look at each one separately and collect attributes on them. So they identified the species. They were geolocated, so there's an X and Y coordinate for each tree. We know exactly where that tree is living in the community. The condition of the tree was identified, and also any maintenance that needed to be completed on the tree. All of these attributes were collected per CAL FIRE requirements. And also the inventory was formatted to fit into the city's ESRI GIS database. And from that inventory analysis, we used iTree Eco to complete an inventory analysis and a summary report. We'll give you some details on the benefits of the tree here in a minute. So there were just a little over 4,500 public trees, 182 unique species, which is awesome. That's really important for diversity, to have a lot of different species within your urban forest. You want to also make sure that you don't have too many of one kind. But that's a great way to start, is with lots of species. You're fortunate to have a climate where you can grow a lot of species. 33% of the trees that were inventoried are in good or better condition. And to date, they're storing a little over 1,250 tons of stored carbon. So that's in their wood, in their roots, in their leaves. That's stored up over time. And then if you were to replace these community trees with similar trees in similar species in the same condition and size, it would cost almost $11 million to replace those trees. Annually, these trees they're providing about $23,000 in annual benefits, but those are only quantifiable benefits. Unfortunately, with current methodology, there's only a few benefits that we can quantify. We know that the benefits from trees are multifaceted, and that has been established through much research. The problem is quantifying it. And so currently we can't quantify a lot of those benefits. So just consider this is a small part of the benefits that we can quantify, and that's including sequestering carbon. So each year, just the community trees sequester an additional 688 tons of carbon. They're removing 13.3 tons of air pollutants, which also translate into human health benefits. And they're reducing stormwater runoff by 5.2 million gallons. Next slide. When we looked at land cover, so this is looking at all trees, public and private. It doesn't differentiate. It's everything within the borders of Watsonville. And we used high-resolution imagery from 2020 with leaf on. And we were able to map the canopy, and we also looked at impervious surface. So currently, canopy is 9.4%, and impervious surface is nearly 60% of land cover. So impervious surface can limit the amount of canopy that you can have, but you still have the potential to have approximately 31% canopy. And you also have the potential to have more if you're considering that trees can shade impervious surface, because we're looking at the top down. There's 6.9 acres, or sorry, square miles in Watsonville, and approximately 411 acres are covered by tree canopy. It's estimated that the city's trees, the community trees, only cover about 30 acres of that. So it's only about 7.3% of the canopy is covered by city trees. And that's really important, because when we start talking about canopy goals in a minute, we need to understand that if we're going to increase canopy, we're really going to have to focus on planting more trees on private property and working with residents to plant more trees if we're going to increase canopy. So the long-term goals of the plan are to reach or exceed 30% overall tree canopy cover, grow a sustainable and resilient community tree resource, enhance the livability and character of the community, encourage stewardship of the urban forest, and celebrate the urban forest. The first goal, which is to reach or exceed 30% overall tree canopy, has a number of objectives, and the key objectives are listed on this slide. But reaching 50% tree canopy cover by 2043 is one of the big ones. This includes an action step for planting approximately 1,500 to 2,000 trees over the next 10 years. So that's annually over the next 10 years. Now, understanding again that very few of those can be planted on city sites, currently with the available planting sites, we're looking at possibly being able to plant only 50 trees on public sites annually. So the rest of those trees would need to be planted on private property. And there's also a huge focus in here on equitable distribution of canopy. So we're looking specifically to increase canopy across Watsonville, especially in those areas that don't have a lot of canopy right now. Another strategy is for Watsonville Wetlands Watch, action step is to continue to provide fruit trees and shade trees for folks on private property. Increasing education about the benefits of trees and emphasizing really the value of shade trees to saving energy and the value of trees for mitigating the effects of climate change and heat islands. The next goal is grow a sustainable and resilient community tree resource, and the key objectives listed here include proactive maintenance for community trees. Proactive maintenance is really critical, and a lot of cities struggle with this because budgets can be varying, but the truth is that proactive maintenance preserves the value of community trees and the benefits that they provide to the community, and delaying maintenance often ends up actually costing more and also increase the risk of trees. Another key objective here is to update and maintain the street tree list. That's really important, especially with climate change. We want to make sure that we're adapting our species list so that the trees that we're planting today will thrive in the future environment. So selecting tree species that are climate adapted and that perform well in Watsonville, and removing trees from the list that aren't thriving and or increasing maintenance. The next goal, enhance the livability and character of the community, includes key objectives to adopt the urban forest management plan, which we hope you'll do tonight, and also including urban forest goals in visionary and planning documents. So tying those back to your climate action plan and your general plan, and making sure that everything aligns as far as your vision for the future of Watsonville, including the urban forest. The next goal is to encourage stewardship of the urban forest and includes objectives to foster relationships with local community partners to implement the goals and objectives of the urban forest plan, and also partnering with private property owners, obviously, to increase tree canopy on private property. The city is continuing to develop materials, educational materials, and engagement materials with a focus on the community education and stewardship of the urban forest. And to restate that the tree planting will need to happen on private property. Education is really important to this. Making sure that the community members have things like the tree guide where they can have help selecting a species. There's a walk in the tree guide so that you can either ride a bike or walk around and see different species. And so that you can imagine that species in your yard, you can see a mature tree out in the community. The city's, another action step here is creating opportunities for the community to assist in improving the urban forest, including actions to identify volunteer opportunities. The next goal is celebrating the urban forest. So becoming a Tree City USA is one of the key objectives that is really important here. And I know that that's been something that's been really important for staff. It also increases awareness and appreciation for what the city has done to this point. The city has really done a lot of work with their urban forest. They've done a lot of work with this project to set themselves up for success in the urban forest and increasing tree canopy. And so becoming a Tree City USA will really give that appreciation to the city and show that appreciation.
In terms of implementation and next steps, we're starting off on a really strong foot. Watsonville Wetlands Watch recently secured $3.2 million for implementation of the next 5 years that would support the goals and objectives of this plan through the Inflation Reduction Act funding. It was the 10th largest grant to a city in California. So I think there's a lot of funding potential. This project will provide free trees to city residents, consultation, training for local government, city government, as well as Pajaro Valley Unified School District staff, funding to address utility conflicts where we have sidewalk uplifting or other overhead utility conflicts, and generally support 5 years of implementation. In 2024, this year, we'll start a young adult job training program to add to our high school job training program that will employ young adults 18 to 24 in urban forest careers. We're completing 4 school sites pilot of school greening construction documents right now, and we'll be expanding partnerships with local colleges and universities, as well as the Community Action Board's Watsonville Works program and other community-based programs that can broaden the community interest and engagement with this work. And we're planning to start Watsonville's first annual Urban Forest Festival this year, and continue that at least for the next 5 years through this funding, and hope to see that improve over time as we really, as Tina mentioned, really catalyze private tree plantings through education, celebration, and awareness through festivals and volunteer events. And as was mentioned, there's a lot of resources that have been developed as part of this plan, which we hope to build off of. There's a tree guide, which is a walking tour. Watsonville has a lot of really great historic trees, so it's fun to connect, the different cultures and folks who have brought trees to this community over time. And understand both the history as well as the trees in the community, and we plan to build on that through both the city's website as well as a new website that was started called WatsonvilleCommunityForest.org.
So as previously mentioned, there's 3 ordinances that were part of this project. The first one, Chapter 7. Title 7, Chapter 11, Public Trees, is an update, so that's tree protections and preservation of public trees. The second one, Title 7, Chapter 13, is the preservation of trees and canopy on private property. And then the third chapter is a new chapter. It doesn't have a title yet, or it doesn't have a number yet. It's tree canopy requirements for new development. And we're going to be coming back to you in June is the plan, to come back and give you a little more information about those ordinances.
So in order for this UFMP to have significant long-term impact, we need to secure sustainable funding for its implementation and best practice recommendations. This includes resources for community engagement. We've set up the website as we've mentioned already, but we're looking to create more resources. This also includes potentially having an arborist on staff to reach our canopy goal and sustain it, to start performing proactive versus reactive maintenance. That said, we'll continue to work with city partners to provide alternative funding and resources, and with this plan in place, we'll be in a better position for grant opportunities. So the outcomes of sustainable funding include the opportunity for recognition for the city's efforts and accomplishments through the UFMP, including the Tree City recognition that Tina mentioned earlier, and also leading on this guiding document to ensure proper development practices moving forward, and being a leader in the region and on the cutting edge of arboriculture and sustainable environmental practices. So that concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions from council? I have a question. All right, so Tree City USA, what do we need to become a Tree City? I'm curious.
To adopt this tonight. And we have to hold a annual event. So normally that's done on Arbor Day, but we can do it any day of the year. And then to have a dedicated, I forgot what it was. The third,
A board.
A board, yes, that's what, a board so to review the normal practices and things like that. So something that we can definitely get a big check mark off that list tonight. So
The last requirement is to spend $2 per capita on your trees, and you're currently doing that.
Excellent, thank you very much. Other questions from council? Councilmember Montesino?
Yes, I do agree with there, over the years, there's been aspirational goals. Believe me, a lot of aspirational. But one of the concerns I have, especially under public lands, and we go back and forth about what could, and there's some specificity about what trees to plant, because over the years, we planted some set of trees in other areas, and some become very problematic. And, in some of our streets, cleaning wise. So hopefully we got that down. Yeah.
Don't go there.
Hopefully you got, some kind of parameters that people in your plan, because like I said, they become a nuisance in some of our streets, and how to clean them up.
Yeah, this plan does several, we're all intimately aware of that problem. Yes. I think this plan does several things to address that. One is it has a new street tree list. So every new development would be required to adhere to this new list. Davie Resources Group did a lot of work to identify which trees would be appropriate. We also, one of the main reasons why we have not just the litter issue, but the sidewalk uplifting is that the growing space that's allowed for the trees is too small. And so the sidewalks come too narrow up to the tree trunk, and the surface roots start uplifting. So we've now put in guidance for what those tree growing spaces are within that tree list as part of this plan, so that when a development moves forward, it's not just do you plant the right species, but do you have the adequate space to accommodate that species. So there definitely is some things that are baked into this plan that should alleviate those issues. But the other thing that Joe mentioned is proactive versus reactive maintenance. The city needs to be forward-thinking about how we maintain this community asset in order to reduce hazards and to reduce litter and other issues that result from unhealthy trees. As Tina mentioned, 33% in good health means that the other side of that is in medium to poor health. We have a lot of trees that really have had very little maintenance, and it's important that we understand that. We now have a list of those trees that's categorized by their maintenance needs, and with additional funding, we can move forward on that more proactive maintenance. But I think you raise very good points.
Okay. And is this a county-wide effort, or is it just Watsonville effort through that you guys are putting on?
The plan before you tonight is just for Watsonville.
Okay. And as we move forward, like Ramsey Park, are we looking at that, you know, because we're doing our Renaissance improvements, are we looking already at, you know, where to place, you know, a lot of these streets, instead of, like, I've seen events and we're just like kind of, during the pandemic, I remember going to Ramsey Park, yeah, let's plan. But are we strategically doing it, you know, with our improvements?
Yes, we definitely are. I mean, we're looking at placement and spacing, thanks to Joe and Jonathan here at the table. We also did kind of a run-through of the trees that are proposed for Ramsey to make sure that they're all trees that are currently on the new approved list that is part of this plan as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Parker?
Thank you. I have a couple questions. We talked, I think once, or I talked to Nick to you guys, about heritage trees at the plaza. There's multiple ones there, and I didn't know the health of them. Could you let us know that? The three?
It's going to vary, and I don't know the exact status of all of them at, you know,
There's that big one in the corner, and then, yeah.
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 Well, and so there's kind of a differentiation between the type of trees that are at the plaza. Also, there's some that are kind of memorial trees that have plaques underneath them that have been purchased and installed, you know, by groups like the Rotary or in dedication of an individual person. And then there are some trees that may or may not have at some point been designated as kind of heritage trees. That list is a little bit suspect also. We've tried to do some digging to figure out whether or not that list was actually officially adopted by the council or somebody at some point, and the records are not super clear. But what we do know is that there are some older trees that are at the plaza, and as we work on the design for the renovation of the plaza, we're looking at the health of all of the trees and figuring out which ones really just need to go based on safety and where they're at kind of status-wise.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So if it's a safety, not that. I have another question for, this came up like at Pinto Lake Park, which is a city park. There was a picture online in Remembering Watsonville about when they planted and they talked about the redwoods here in the valley and in the city. And they planted a redwood and then they have a plaque there now, if you're familiar with it on that. I know because my great-grandma, my great-grandpa were in that picture. And I was like, whoa, hey, I've never seen my great-grandma smile. That was pretty good. She's very happy. And that was 1943. And I'm thinking this valley used to have, and the city used to have, lots of redwoods. Do we have a count on how many redwoods generally? Because they're pretty big.
We can use the Tree Keeper application that Davey developed to search that. So I don't have the number, but we have the ability to research that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll let them search and then I'll ask another question. So we're going to have to revise and amend the municipal code and you're asking us to do that, right? To protect community trees.
We will be when we come back in June, so not tonight.
No, I understand that, yeah. But the impact on that for the people of Watsonville will be they have to have permits for removal or planting or both?
For removal is what we're proposing at this point. Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at it here. Did we have any kind of cost estimate, or maybe you could come up with that for what it would cost the average homeowner who would have to want to plant something or want to remove something, so that we can make the public aware of that when and ourselves before we move on voting on that for sure?
Yeah, definitely. When we come back with the ordinances, we'll come back with proposed fees also for the council to consider.
Okay, that's great. So Do we have how many red ones?
I haven't searched it yet. I'll definitely get that and get that to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dutra.
Thank you. I was just gonna make mine in the comment section, but I'll make it now. Tonight seems so far so good. I think June is gonna be where I have some questions. And I just wanna make sure that, you know, private property, I don't think that like we really should be, I don't know what it's gonna look like, your ordinance, but, you know, I don't think we should be telling people that they're forced to keep something if, you know, a tree is uprooting their foundation. And I mean, there's just things that these are investments that families have made, you know, and I totally agree. I just, like I told you last time you guys were here, I planted a tree. I have a maple tree in front of my house. It's so cute. It's already the second year. My neighbors are like, I like your tree. And I'm like, yes. So I get it, right? But I also think that, you know, we can't, I'm not going to, I don't think I would be very supportive if we are going to be telling people what they can and cannot do with their trees on their private property. So just to be aware. Have you guys been thinking about that at all?
I just want to clarify that tonight it does not include the ordinances. We're not asking you to pass
No,
those
I know.
tonight.
I was just saying, when you bring it back in June,
Yes,
I'm
okay.
planting the seed.
Yeah, okay. Planting the seed.
I'm
There you go.
planting the seed. When you come back, I'm just saying that, like, you know, that you know where I'm going to be at least. I don't know. There might be some other people feel the same way up here about private property and in the trees. I also think there should be no fee to cut down your tree. I think government is we're getting too much into people's pocketbooks for things that we shouldn't be charging someone to cut a tree down in their backyard. That's just my opinion, but there you go.
Other questions from council? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna take it to the public. Do we have any public comment on this item? Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Sally Christine Rogers, and I live here in Watsonville. I've been funding Watsonville Watson's Watch since its inception because I think it's an amazing organization. And I would like to commend Jonathan and his team for the incredible breadth and depth of education that they've provided to the community. And there is irrefutable evidence about the positivity of trees. And I've done my own research on this in terms of the contributions to the community, the reduction of heating, the reduction of air conditioning, the improvement of grade point averages, the improvement of neighborhood relationships when more trees are present, and the reduction of violence, all of which we could use in our community. And because it's apparent, very apparently aware by the graph and just by being in Watsonville, that we need this canopy. So I encourage you to ferret out the issues that you're concerned about, overreach into people's private property, et cetera. On the other hand, I think the intention is that you don't want people to cut down trees that are valuable assets in the community. So there has to be some sort of mitigation there. And we want to encourage developers to plant trees to add to the urban forest plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good night. Good evening. Ya estoy dormido. Aurelio Gonzalez, District 2. On the City Council, District 2, they took down an old tree, an old pepper tree on East Lake. Oh, no, Beach Street. Sorry, Beach Street. It was by a lawyer's property, private property. But the tree had been there for many, many years, decades, right? They even had a little plaque on it. But they took it down. It was sick, so it needed to come down. It was a safety hazard. But it raised the question of how do we replace trees, or how do trees get replaced on private properties when they're removed? And we didn't have an ordinance that governs that. And I brought it up to Matt's attention, and I said, you know, we need to protect our trees. And that's when he let me know that there was already a process that was started. And I remember he was there in the office with me. And I told him, well, we need to start protecting our trees. And it comes up to the issue of ADUs, right? We're growing, we need housing. And then when we build these ADUs, sometimes in housing, there might be a tree that might be removed. And so we need to make sure that we mitigate those situations where the owner is required to plant a tree at least, right? How the fees are gonna work, that has to be really thought out, really good. But I'm glad that this is forward and before you. It's taken a long time to get here. It didn't make it, but I'm glad it's here. And you guys should adopt it because we do need, if you look down at Downtown Pacific Plan and our general plan overall, we do want to make this more of a comfortable zone for everybody, right? And that means the canopy effect, the soothing effect for our community, and it will create a good, healthy environment overall. Thank you, and good night.
Good night, Aurelio.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Members of the council, my name's Ilya Belaich, resident of District 1, and I wanted to work off of the comments made by Councilmember Dutra. Approximately 20 years ago, your planning commission considered this very subject, the requirement that anybody who wants to remove a tree on their property would have to pay a fee and get a permit from the city. And there was quite a bit of input that was delivered by members of the public. And there was a tree service contractor, if I remember correctly, Dennis Williams, who came forward and very emphatically urged the Planning Commission not to approve it. And he provided reasoning insofar as that he observed how such an ordinance was working in the city of Santa Cruz. There you had a very costly and very laborious procedure by which person that has trees on their property would have to follow in order to then get permission to cut a tree down. Well, I realize that your proposal isn't fleshed out right now. Jimmy Dutra just offered some initial concerns about where this could go, and I wanted to support that heads up to the council members. In fact, in a community where you don't have a lot of trees, you don't actually support your goal of getting trees in there when you start putting a penalty and a disincentive for anybody to have a tree in the first place. So keep that in mind as you provide guidance to your staff on this subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public who'd like to speak on this item? Welcome.
Welcome, Mayor, council members. My name is Victor Marani. I no longer live in the city of Watsonville. I live outside the city limits. I do stay very active with the school community and work with a group called the California Schools Alliance. And I will remind everyone that the schools used to celebrate something called Arbor Day. I don't know if that's part of your program or not, but I would highly recommend you tie into that. I want to congratulate you on getting such a wonderful grant and tying in the educational component of the schools. It's very important that our children understand the value of the trees, whatever they may be. Also, being a former history teacher, I'm sure many of you already know this, but maybe some of the newer members of the council don't realize that the city of Watsonville owns quite a bit of forest land up in Corralitos. And maybe you might want to consider folding that in with your, I know it's not urban forest land, but it's pretty close to what you're trying to do. Not all trees are our friends. I think you know about the sidewalk destruction and other LMAD nightmares and planting the wrong trees and people freaking out and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, it's real, right? So let's keep it real. I think Jimmy made an excellent point about, you know, charging people fees, and that's not a good thing. I've walked around the plaza. Yes, there's some sick trees. I walked by the Jalares Center, and the whole rain gutter is completely rusted out or rotted out because of tree fall. So you go check it out if you don't believe me. Ask anyone who lives in La Selva Beach how fun invasive species eucalyptus trees are. Actually killed a couple people a few years ago by randomly falling and taking out houses. So be very cautious. We don't love all of them, most of them, but not all of them. And I guess in closing,
Thank you.
I will say one other thing that involves the schools, and I think Maria would want to remember this one. They cut
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public who'd like to speak on this item? All right, seeing no one else, I'll bring it back to council for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this item, but I also have a comment, if I may. So congratulations on the grant. Oh,
I'll get a second.
of course you will. Thank you. So just congratulations on the grant. I'm really looking forward to the Urban Festival 2024, whenever that's planned. But I also want to acknowledge and thank you for keeping our youth in mind as part of this program, the Young Adult Job Training Program. I mean, career development, green jobs. So thank you for continuing that. I know you have an internship program currently. And I know it's not something that we're boarding on tonight, but as you bring this item in the future, you mentioned new development, so I'm just wondering, or a question I will have would be around ADUs. Would there be a requirement for folks who want to do that type of investment in their current property? So with that, I'm happy to support this item.
All right. Go ahead, Councilmember Dutra.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I just wanted, Jonathan, the tree whisperer. But I've worked with Jonathan since 2014. When did you get here? What year did you come to Watsonville to start working with Wetlands Watch?
2005.
Okay, so you've been here quite a while. Like, it's almost your 20th anniversary. But I do want to say that when I first got here in 2014, you worked with me in my district, which is now Crystal's district, to really remove all the non-native trees and brush and cleaned it up because we were having some issues of people staying in there, but it also cleared it up to what it looks like today, which is really beautiful. And I want to say thank you for that. And when I think about other parts of the community, I know that we can definitely, I think we're heading in the right direction because some people are pretty afraid of some invasive plants or they don't want to plant the wrong thing that will either do something to their property or, but like eucalyptus trees, I mean, even here in Watsonville, they're the ones that burn, that are accidentally caught on fire. So they catch on fire, and they're not native to our land, if I'm correct, right? So I want to make sure that you know where we're going, and that we let the public know that we're going to be planting trees and brush that are going to be sustainable and that are, I guess, native. I don't know how else to say it, but and we're not going to be doing things that are going to be invasive. So.
Do we have any other comments from council? Councilmember Salcido?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Ms. Rogers and Mr. Marani for coming and speaking on this issue and staying so late with us. I appreciate your participation this evening and your thoughts. I said it earlier, the devil's in the details, right? We are not the only city that's been trying to manage this type of incentivization and decentivizing, if you will, removal of trees on private property and what that balance looks like. So let's take a wide lens, right? Let's work with our city attorney who has worked with many other types of cities. What have they done successfully? What have they not done? What are the pros and cons of, for example, City of Santa Cruz's policy? Functionally, what does it look like? Is a monetary sanction or a permitting requirement the only option we have? What are the other options? What are the pros and cons of them? I would really like to see some legal analysis around an ordinance like this and give us some variance around what our options are and pros and cons. So I like to see the legal language. I want to see how it functionally works as an ordinance. I want to see, a population similar to ours, dissimilar to ours. Let's really cast a wide lens and work interdisciplinary to try and figure out the best ordinance language to achieve the goals we want and balance that private property interest. Thank you.
Councilmember Montesino.
Just want to, say, good presentation, long-winded, but good presentation.
Look who's talking.
But like I said, a lot of work has gone into it, you know, it's amazing. I was here before my, in District 4, before Councilman Dutra, and I remember, you know, these aspirational goals, and, but we didn't have all the data. So not to look at all the data, you know, what we achieve over the years is commendable, so thank you.
Mayor, if I could, I just want to build in a little bit of hedge room. My office is reviewing the ordinances now. We are endeavoring to get them done. I just always want to build in a little bit of hedge. We are trying to get them to the council by the second meeting in June. We never want to guess what the Planning Commission might do, if there's any need to revise them after they go to the Planning Commission. I just want to, that June 24th date, whatever it was, is the goal. We will endeavor to meet that goal. I just want to build in a little bit of wiggle room there if need be. Thank you. You're a lawyer.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Parker?
Thank you. I want to say thank you. I didn't think your presentation was long-winded. I thought it was very detailed. We appreciate it because you see all the comments that it created from us. I hope it gave you some good insight into where we're headed. Of course, Planning Commission, as our city attorney mentioned, is going to see this before we will, again, when it comes to ordinances. But I think Mr. Belaich made a point when he talked about what happened, as did Councilwoman Crystal Saucedo, when they talk about casting a wide net and seeing what Santa Cruz did, what failed and why it failed, because we want our community to embrace this. We don't want to have to forcibly hold them down and say, you will embrace this. And we may have to do that with some folks. But for the most part, you know, we want them to find a way to navigate, especially since the state of California, when ADUs are mentioned, is forcing us into creating ADUs all over the place and also cutting down trees and doing that in backyards and creating that part of the canopy. So I really appreciate the detail that you gave, and I can see that you're ready for that long final push. And do I have a Redwood answer? How many?
118 in the community resource.
That's pretty good for 6 1/4 square miles. That were all decimated
That's
for
just
like hundreds
community.
of years, yes.
Yeah, there might be more on private. I'm sure there's more on private property.
Okay, so that's public property only?
Public trees,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you very much.
All right, any other comments before we take a roll call vote? I have a quick comment. Thank you for those resources. I checked out the website and all the cool stuff. So if you haven't looked up that, please do, because it's actually very cool. So thank you very much for your presentation. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Clark?
Aye.
Dutra?
Aye.
Montesino?
Yes.
Orozco?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Saucedo?
Aye.
And Quiroz Carter.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you again for the presentation, and we look forward to seeing you again. All righty, we are moving on to item 12, 12A, City Charter Amendments as proposed by the City Charter Subcommittee, and this is the final hearing. And we have a staff report by City Clerk Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, everyone. My name is Erwin Ortiz. I'm the city clerk for the city of Watsonville. I'm going to be presenting on the city charter and some proposed amendments. Just for the record, the city charter began when the then mayor appointed a subcommittee to review the charter in its entirety. And that committee was made up of Mayor Pro Tempore Orozco, Councilmember Saucedo, and Councilmember Dutra. So the requirement for amending a charter is pursuant to Government Code 34-458. It requires 2 public hearings and 1 final meeting after the hearings to give direction on if we're going to take it to the ballot. The first 2 hearings must be 30 days apart, and 1 must be after business hours. All of our meetings are after business hours, so it qualifies. The final meeting must be held at least 21 days after the second hearing, which is today's meeting. So today's our final meeting. Here's the timeline, just for reference. We have to provide the County of Santa Cruz the language that we want to propose on the ballot by August. We recommend that we do that much prior to that. July is our last meeting before before the deadline in August for putting something on the ballot. So we typically bring things in June. February 13th was our first hearing, March 26th was our second hearing, and today is our third and final hearing, depending on council direction. So on March 26th, the council considered the charter, and all of the suggestions were accepted except for one, which would allow the mayor to appoint non-registered voters to commissions. The committee was tasked with updating the recommendations, and the affected sections are mostly around Section 900. So Section 900 is in regards to boards and commissions. So the council direction was to accept the recommendations of the subcommittee with the exception of the recommended change to Section 900, which would have added 2 non-voting members to the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Library Board. The second direction was to have staff return with language for a second ballot question regarding whether the Watsonville residents, regardless of voter status, would serve on the Parks and Rec Commission and the Library Board. And of course, to set the third hearing for today. So there are 2 questions that staff has prepared to bring back to council for their consideration. It would put 2 questions on the ballot. The first question would be, shall the measure amending the charter of the city of Watsonville to allow council members to receive employment benefits, adjust the mayor's salary, modify council meeting requirements, allow the council to set compensation for planning commissioners, make the library board a commission, update qualifications and duties of the city manager, clarify requirements regarding ordinance publication and hiring attorneys, clarify staff positions and references to city regulations, and remove or revise provisions to be consistent with current law to be adopted. So that's a mouthful, but we do have the charter redlined as an attachment to the staff report, and it's a lot of cleanup language that had not been done in many, many years. So that's what that first measuring considers. And the second measure question would be, shall the measure amending the charter of the city of Watsonville to modify the eligibility requirement for appointing to the Parks and Rec Commission and to the Library Commission from qualified elector to resident of the city of Watsonville be adopted? So just as a note, separate from measure number 2, the subcommittee recommended several clarifications to Section 900. Those clarifications would be included in the first measure. It's things cleanup like making the library board a commission instead. And both would need a simple majority to pass, which means 50% plus 1. So the recommendation for council tonight is a motion directing us staff to finalize ballot questions to be included in the ballot for November 5th, 2024. And I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Dutra.
I have a question. Erwin, can you go back to the measures? Is that the exact language that you guys are going to use?
This is the language that our city attorney prepared for tonight. We still are in time to make changes or revisions, but I'll let Sam, our city attorney, talk to that.
I would just, if I would move stuff around and maybe start with like duties of the city manager. You're leading with adjusting the mayor's salary. People are going to look at that and be, who thought of
Yeah,
that?
I did it in chronological order.
Oh, yeah.
As it appears, I agree with you, and I perseverated over that quite a bit. I did it in chronological order as it appears in the charter, with the exception of, I kind of grouped like things together, like the minor, clarifications. I kind of group things together. We can move it around if you'd like. Another reason, 2 more relevant pieces of information. One, the changes to council member compensation have to be specifically called out. Doesn't necessarily say they have to be first, but they do have to be specifically called out. Second, the word count, the permissible word count for a ballot measure is 75. And if I am correct, I believe the word count of this ballot measure is 75. Some of the words count as one word, so we can move things around a little bit, but it'd be hard to add words.
So you said council members' compensation, but since we're not putting the council members' compensation in here, are you including benefits as a compensation? Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I would just, I don't know, just if you're, I think that some voters, as much as they love us, I think that I think they'll look at this and be like, oh, I'm not giving the mayor salary a raise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if the council wants, I have it written. if you want to continue more and there are more comments, great, but I'll take notes.
I think Casey said a good thing. Maybe start with clarify class staff positions, like, you know, stuff.
Everybody wants to clarify, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like, sorry, just to piggyback, I like clarify staff positions, and update qualifications and duties of the city manager. I just think those are the things we spent the most amount of time
we
on.
spent so much time
That
on,
was a
yeah.
huge amount of time for the subcommittee and a lot for council, and I think those are the most important things for the voters to understand. Not that we're trying to hide anything about, you know, order of importance here, but that's the most important things that we need to update, the language of the charter and the qualifications.
Got it?
I can go back and watch.
Okay.
Other questions from council? All right, Councilmember Parker?
Thank you very much. The legal phrase qualified elector rather than registered voter, I'm just saying the public's not going to get that.
I agree with that as well. And we kept, I don't remember why.
There's not
I
75
kept that.
words
I
in there.
think-
You can put it in
No,
parentheses or something.
I completely agree. If that's the council's, I agree. I think.
For clarification, just
Yeah,
for.
sure. We could just replace it with registered voter.
If by law
That
that's
works? Great.
equal to it, that's something that the public
agree.
would understand.
Other questions from council? If not, I'm going to go out to the public. Do we have anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this item? Welcome.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Maria Cadenas. I'm the Executive Director of Ventures. I have come before with you to express my concern about pulling out this aspect of the additions to the city charter, mostly because it implies two statements. One is that the participation of residents of the city are only good for two commissions, not the entirety of commissions and boards of the city council, regardless of their inability to pursue citizenship and thus voter registration. We have plenty of residents and workers that are taxpayers, business owners, homeowners of this city who cannot pursue citizenship, not because of anything in their control. And the policies in terms of inclusion of boards and commissions, not only in this county and neighboring cities like Santa Cruz or cities like in the Bay Area, but also at the state level through Senate Bill 714 by Senator Ana Caballero, which expanded engagement into county central committees of dreamers and other undocumented individuals. The value of our community's voices and their experience in creating better policy is incredibly important. Saying that their voice is only valid in certain commissions is disingenuous to the equity values of the city, and it undermines their humanity and dignity and the power and voices that they can contribute. The council has ultimate vote on any recommendations from any commission. This is not about limiting power or access, but if anything is creating an other when an other doesn't need to be created. So I just wanted to express my deep concern in the approach that's being taken by the city council and the city in proposing two separate votes, and then continue to marginalize the community and undervalue their contribution to what this city can become. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, Watsonville City Council members. My name is Mary Magaña Ayala, and I'm the Semitas Program Coordinator here at Ventures. Semitas automatically opens a college savings account for newborns born on or after January 1st, 2021 to Santa Cruz County residents, regardless of their background. Our hope with this program is to create college-going expectations in families. I'm here today to express my support to expand board and commission participation to all city residents regardless of voter registration status. By restricting participation to only registered voters, the city charter is opting to continue the generational silencing of the large undocumented community that resides here in Watsonville. The restriction goes against the city's commitment to equity, as it is not considering the voices of those who are not registered voters. By limiting the participation in board and commissions, the city council is missing an opportunity to create meaningful change in Watsonville. We have to lead by those who we serve, therefore it's pivotal to consider the entire Watsonville population. And as many of you know, most are unable to register due to their legal status. expanding the board and commission participation to all city residents, regardless of voter registration, would allow more civic engagement from the community, which is something that the city strongly encourages. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public who'd like to speak on this item? Welcome.
Thank you, Victor Morani. Since I got cut off, I just want to say the school district made a big mistake cutting down the Japanese community trees, so I'll just throw that
We're
in.
on this item, sir.
I know, but I just wanted to finish the thought. Yes, I know what's going on. The charter is the constitution of your city, and you should always be gentle when you're dealing with the Constitution, in my opinion. For the public to be able to change the Constitution, the Charter of Watsonville, they have to go through a lot of gyrations, thousands of signatures, legal wrangling, all kinds of stuff. So when the council does it and puts it on the ballot, you sort of bypass that more arduous process. I think you want to review some recent court rulings, Sam. You may have difficulty about mentioning salary in particular and some of these other things without being very specific. Like 25%, you have to reference what that number is. Also, there is a cost, no one's mentioned this, to put this up, 80 to 100K per measure. So it seems like measure 2 is kind of a little thin to put out there for 100K. I kind of agree with these ladies. I mean, if you're going to do it, go for it. But if you're just going to do a little bit, maybe you hold off on that one and let the citizens come forward with their version of it. These kind of changes should be done as a technical cleanup. You modernize things, you generally stay away from controversial things, and you try to make the city run a little more smoother, kind of tune up the old car, so to speak. So be gentle, think of the cost, and be a little more specific on the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public who'd like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for a motion.
Mayor, if I could respond,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman's first name, to the comments about the requirement for specificity. I bet that what he is referring to is the Brown Act requirement that requires what the mayor did prior to the item on the consent calendar this evening, which is that an oral summary be given of increases to compensation for executives. And that's what we did. That's not a requirement for city council member compensation. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Do we have a motion?
I would like to propose a motion with changes.
Got him.
With those changes that were outlined here, considering, what Councilmember Dutra said and Councilmember Rositos, Councilmember Parker said on the number 2. So if that would be my motion.
What changes?
Can we have some more clarification on the motion?
Well, I thought she was working on it, so that's.
So here's my understanding of that.
Yeah.
Here's my understanding. I know there was some rearrangement of the language in Measure 1. I honestly did not get it in my notes. I will go back and watch the video and nail that down. As to Measure 2, I think the change was from qualified elector to registered voter. Got it? Cool.
That's what you were.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Can I give a comment?
Absolutely. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the 3 speakers that came up tonight to reference this item. I do want to say that I will be in support of this item tonight because I think it is a step in the right direction. I was a supporter of just allowing any resident, right, to serve on those commissions. But I do feel that when it comes to amending our charter, we need everyone to be on board. So I do see this as a compromise. So I also want to acknowledge, and thank you, Erwin, for including the list of the other cities. Most cities only have resident. So I just want to acknowledge that because I think it is important to
for the larger community to know that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dutra?
Thank you. I also just want to say, I'd like to say thank you to Councilmember Salcido and Councilmember Orozco. You know, we were in the subcommittee, we've been working on this for, I don't know, this was also Councilmember Montesino's dream, so we've been working on this for a while. So, I mean, we've had, and to the city manager, Irwin, this city attorney, I mean, we've really been working on this for months and months and months and months, going through the entire charter, and really knowing the importance, because this is the document for our community. So we understood that, and hopefully the changes that we are now agreeing on because of the compromise at the full board will be something that hopefully the community will get behind. And I want to say thank you to the speakers that came up, and hopefully, you know, we're taking that small step of putting on the 2 commissions, and we'll see what happens, and hopefully this will just be the beginning, and we'll know in November how that moves forward. So thank you very much, and thanks for being a voice in this community.
Councilmember Montesino?
Yeah, I want to thank the subcommittee for all their hard work. I know, I didn't want to be at that committee. But you did awesome work, and you know, but this is about, you know, community engagement and community efforts. This document needed some life and needed some updating, but I think it's a step in the right direction. I do want to appreciate the comments that were, and I acknowledge them. I think you're correct. But as a community, I'll tell you, in my district, I think and I'm going to be running for re-election, is I got to get my community more engaged in voting. Because out of, you know, the voting people that actually vote, we're very, you know, I only have half of them voting. That's a problem. If I can't get them to go out and vote, I can't even get them to get out and vote for Measure 2. You know, I looked at you know, different, you know, calculation how but it's a step in the right direction. It's a step at recognizing, but it's a step of re-engaging the community and educating the community that how important and vital it is for people to be engaged in voting at every election. So I want to thank everyone. Thanks.
Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mayor. So if we look in the agenda packet, there is also the survey that our city clerk did with other cities. We are a charter city, which, as Mr. Marani referenced, we have our own kind of constitution, local constitution. Most of the cities in the state of California are general law cities. The governor can state and pass through legislature, you know, a dictum to everybody, and that's what they have to follow. We here in the city of Watsonville follow what the people of Watsonville want. So, as Mr. Marani said, you know, I'm a firm believer in letting the people vote. I was a part of a large group that brought 3 different measures forward, and they were passed with 60% that changed our charter. And I would love to see what you just said, getting people participatory, get out there and change and vote. And I think that's what our city clerk would love to see too, is more voters to make change. And so I'm fully fine with the compromise, and because I think the people of the city of Watsonville will make their voices heard. And if it needs to further change in future years, then it should be on the ballot again, and it may come not from the city council, but from the people of Watsonville. Thank you.
Councilmember Salcido?
Thank you so much for to the speakers on this issue. Maria Cadenas, I watched your presentation to the County of Santa Cruz. I watched your presentation to the City of Santa Cruz. It really did open and change my perspective, and I really appreciate your coming here tonight. It's not exactly what you want, obviously, but I believe in the voters that they're going to pass this. I'll personally be voting for it. It does, it's not everything, but we wanted to reach a consensus. We really wanted, as a group, to try and get to a space where all of us could support this together. And this was my first time on a very intensive subcommittee. There were times I wish I wasn't on the subcommittee, but we persevered, we overcame. I really appreciated the work. I did, I learned a lot. And I really appreciate all the effort that was put into this, culminating in our hopefully final-ish direction. So, thank you.
All right, any other comments from council? All right, I will be voting no on this. I really appreciate all the hard work that the subcommittee did, but I don't think people need to be registered voters to get involved. There's lots of different ways to get involved, and I think this would be an avenue for people to get involved. So for the measure 2, I can't support that. I just think of the Dreamer students. I think of people like my cousin who tried so hard and worked so hard to become, citizens of this country. And I think that a lot of people in our community are in that same boat, and they should get a chance to participate in things and to eventually get towards the path to citizenship. And I'm standing really, really firm on that, so I'm going to be voting no on this. All right. With that, we have a motion and a second, I believe. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Clark?
Aye.
Dutra?
Aye.
Montesino?
Yes.
Orozco?
Aye.
Parker?
Yes.
Salcido?
Aye.
And Quiroz Carter.
No.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. All right, we do not have any, moving on to item 13, we do not have any emergency items added to our agenda. Do we have any, moving on to item 14, do we have any requests or scheduling of future agenda item requests? Councilmember Montesino.
Yes, I'd like to bring back some sort of, report on Clifford Boulevard. I keep still seeing the garbage collectors. Now there is a stop sign, which makes no sense to me when, in 2012, 2013, we put a roundabout to get rid of stops because of the environment, and so people don't stop, and now we put another one. Well, which one is it, Public Works? Somebody has to give me an answer, because it doesn't work, when we're saying one thing one year and the next, we just put up a stop sign when with no notice, and in an artery that traversed, it's one of the main arteries for Watsonville. Another one is, I love the presentation about the Watsonville urban forestry, really tactful everything, but I want the same thing as a parking, a management plan in the downtown. We need a parking, because that will give us some efforts to clean up our downtown. We need to clean up our downtown. This is my effort all year. You're gonna hear me all the time, clean up. We need a plan. We need a plan. We need, what days there's sweeping, what days, our efforts are out there. Do we need to increase, decrease, whatever it is, but we need to just get some parameters. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other requests from council? Seeing none, I will go ahead and adjourn. Have a good night.